Hey people, welcome back to the channel. This is a story in which Madara is Naruto's grandfather. He implanted his and Hashirama's cells into Naruto and trained him, which made him extremely strong. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment if you want to suggest fanfic. Check the description for credits and support the creator of the story. So let us begin. 2/13, 4:17 p.m., Atharva Patal. Chapter 11, What Are You? It had been a week, a whole week, and nothing was happening. Naruto was a patient person. However, this was too much even for him. He had come to test his strength, not sit around and listen to Mei or Yugao while they speak. Naruto was getting tired of it. He had come to the village to test his strength, not converse. Mei was also pushing him too far. Unless he got some action to release all the energy within, he would soon be on the edge. He was not going to wait for something like to occur while he just stood. He did not care for what the Mizukage was thinking or if Mei's forces were not ready for an all-out war. He could cripple any army on his own without help from anyone. Sighing, Naruto walked toward Mei's tent. He realized that he had been sighing a lot lately. Boredom could drive anyone to anything. He hated having to report to her of what he was going to do. It was like he was taking orders from her, and Naruto hated taking orders from someone. Well, when he does go back to Konoha, he would have to swallow his pride, and take orders from Tsunade. She was the Godime Hokage and had authority over each shinobi of the village. Still, he was not going to allow her to boss him around or make him to staff he did not like just because she was the Hokage. Naruto did not bother to announce his presence before getting inside the tent. He knew the woman would be inside sitting on her chair. During day, she was always sitting there unless she was doing something that could not be done inside her tent. Mei smiled brightly upon seeing Naruto. She was not alone in the office. She had Ao, Chojuro and 3 other men in her company. They were probably discussing battle strategies. Can't stay away from me, Mei stated with a teasing smile. Naruto just shrugged and simply ignored the other occupants in the room. I'm going to force Yugura out, Naruto announced. Mei raised a brow. What? I'm going to force Yugura to come out. I have grown tired of waiting, Naruto replied, turning away from Mei. We are not prepared to fight him now. Don't go doing something like, a man said sternly upon hearing Naruto's words. I agree with Tamashi. We cannot afford to go in an all-out war with Yugura now. We still need some time to get more men and to formulate our battle strategy. Ao said. You are speaking as if he can actually force Yugura to fight us. We have tried that many times, when we were still at our full strength. No offense, Mei-sama, but even your presence in the battlefield could not force Yugura to come out. Another man stated with a snicker at Naruto. Mei frowned. She did not tell them that Naruto stated that he could summon the Kyuubi. She did not want to get their hopes up. Don't get involved if you are not strong enough. I did not even request that you come to fight when Yugura does show up. I was merely letting you know what I was going to do. Naruto replied without even looking back to the man. Who do you think you are here? You are not the boss, Mei-sama is, and nothing happens unless she says so. Ao said, his voice raised as he glared at Naruto's back. Naruto continued on walking away without responding. It was not worth it to respond to Ao. Ao, calm down, Mei said. Naruto, can I speak with you for a moment? She said, her voice now being serious. Naruto stopped walking, inviting her to come and say what she wishes. Mei walked up to Naruto and looked at him with a rather serious look. I appreciate that you are trying to help, but you can't come here and undermine my authority. I don't want you doing anything that will put my men at risk, she said. Oh, he said. They won't be at risk unless they get in my way. What I am doing works for you better. I can cripple Yagura's forces, your men can come up and finish things. Naruto stated and began to walk away. Mei caught him by his hand. Naruto turned around and looked at the woman with a raised brow. Mei stared at Naruto's eyes as if she was trying to decipher something. Slowly she let go of Naruto's hand and sighed. Naruto was going to do what he wanted, there was not stopping him. She deduced that much by just looking at his eyes. Ao, Chojuro, come with me, Mei called. Chojuro and Ao came to her and they followed Naruto. They traveled for about an hour at a fair pace. In the place they were, they could see Yagura's base, the Mizukage's tower. Ao was beginning to think that Naruto was leading them to a trap. He was beginning to think that Naruto was going to hand them over to Yagura's forces. He searched everywhere with his Byakugan, trying to see if there were shinobi waiting to ambush them. However, he found none. He breathed out a sigh of relief when he did see that there was no one waiting to ambush them. Naruto suddenly stopped. "You may want to stop there," he said before walking further away from the group. After he had made a good distance with the group, Naruto went through a set of hand seals. He slammed his hands on the ground and a seal appeared on it. Kuchio's no jutsu. Mei and her two bodyguards just stared with wide eyes. They felt that Naruto released huge amounts of chakra to summon whatever that he was summoning. A large puff of smoke appeared and they felt the demonic presence, the foul chakra that suffocated everyone beneath it. When the smoke cleared, the Kyuubi stood in all its menacing glory, its 9 tails waving slowly behind it. Fear and awe crept within them as they stared at the beast that was said to be able to make tsunamis with a single swipe of its tail. The Kyuubi was the beast that went on a rampage at Konoha many years ago, the beast that many villages attempted and failed to capture to add as their military weapon, the strongest Biju in all of the 9-tailed beasts. Seeing the monster in front of them, they took a few steps back in fear of the beast. Mei Terumi had a single though in her mind, he can really summon it. Naruto had said he could, a part of her wanted to believe it, a part of her refused to believe unless she saw it. Now that she was seeing it, she believed. If anything he was to say he could do after this, she would believe him without a single cent of doubt in her mind. Naruto, why have you brought me here? The Kyuubi asked in its deep menacing voice that would send shivers down to anyone's spine. Its blood-red silted eyes stared at Naruto waiting for a response. I want you to do something for me. Naruto replied, his tone up so the Kyuubi could hear him as he was standing beside its paws. He had his hands crossed on his chest, eyes not even looking at the Kyuubi when he responded. Tell me so I can do it quickly, and go back to taking my nap, the Kyuubi responded. Mei and her man almost face-faulted at the Kyuubi's response. The almighty Kyuubi would only be concerned about taking a nap. It was supposed to be a beast of mass destruction, not a beast of taking naps. Chojuro quickly erased a thought in his head of the Kyuubi sleeping with bubbles coming out of its nose. Even given your freedom all you do is sleep, Naruto stated, shaking his head. I called you here because I want you to fire a Bijumuda at the tallest building you can see from here. He said. The tallest building was the Mizukage's tower. Even if Yagura is present when the Bijumuda hit the tower, Naruto had no doubt the man would survive. Fine, Kyuubi replied with a shrug and then brought its tails over its head in concentration. Chakra began to form above it before mixing, forming a large ball of mass energy. The Kyuubi directed the Bijumuda towards its target. The attack traveled a rather fast speed for something its size. The attack left its mark on the earth as it peeled off chunks of earth. After traveling a considerable distance, it finally hit the tower and blew it up. You can go, Naruto said, turning away from the explosion. The Kyuubi disappeared in a puff of smoke without saying any further word. Naruto raised a brow seeing the shocked expressions on Mei, Ao, and Chojuro had both shocked and fear in his face. Naruto walked towards them calmly. Upon reaching them he spoke, give it a few days and Yagura's forces will be charging at your camps. Naruto said, walking past them. Mei was first to get over her shock. She followed Naruto, and Chojuro and Ao followed her from behind, keeping their distance so to give her some space to speak with Naruto. Without doubt, there were things that needed to be discussed. From this day onward, Ao would never look at Naruto the same as he had been. So you went kidding when you said you could summon the Kyuubi, Mei said, having caught up to Naruto. Naruto looked at her at the corner of his eye. What gave you the idea that I was kidding? Nothing, it was just hard to believe that you could actually do it, Mei responded, her ever-present smile flashing at Naruto. I don't see how something like that could be, Naruto trailed off. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his front. It appears that your men are on their way here. They must have felt the Kyuubi's presence. Naruto noted after sensing a number of shinobi making their way towards them. I would have been surprised if they did not, Mei replied. I'm sure even now Yagura must be panicking after that attack. Naruto said nothing after Mei. Her men were already near their location. They would be making noise wanting to know what had happened. He was not going to hang about to witness that. It did not take long for the rebels to get to them. As soon as they appeared, Naruto disappeared from the crowd. Naruto's tent. Naruto appeared at the entrance of his tent. The camp was still full of shinobi moving about the camps. Not all of them had gone out to inspect what their senses had picked up. That was logical to leave some men behind to guard the camp while others went away. If they did not take that precaution, they would risk having their camp destroyed should their enemy decide to attack their camp. He walked inside and saw a shadow sitting on his bed. Naruto sighed. He should have already gotten used to this. He was wondering why he did not have a clone take back Yugao to Konoha. He was the only one she knew at this place, thus she tended to spend excessively much time in his presence. It was good that Zetsu had yet to get to the camps. Had he been here, they would never have gotten a chance to speak, since if it was not Yugao, it was Mei. At least Yugao did not flirt with him. She behaved well, as any Anbu should. It appears like you are always following my movements. Naruto commented. No, it's not that. I just know that during day if you are not with Mei-san you are usually in here. Yugao responded. Then cursed herself after seeing how weird it sounded. Then, Naruto stated looking at the woman. She seemed to have something in her mind. I may have been young 16 years ago when the Kyuubi almost destroyed Konoha, but I can never forget how it felt like when it appeared in its foul chakra. Naruto remained quiet. Yugao had not asked a question, there was nothing for him to respond to. Did you release it? Naruto simply nodded. Do you know how Konoha might react when they find out you can release it? People will start to look at you with fear. Fear that you might release the Kyuubi. Yugao stated looking straight into Naruto's eyes. You should not concern yourself with what I do, Naruto replied and walked away from his tent. 3 days later Naruto had been waiting patiently for Yagura to have his men charge at the rebels' camps. He had gone back to wearing his armor as he waited. He had no doubt in mind that Yagura would run about to attack Mei and her men. At the rebels' camps, things had been rather busy as they formulated their battle strategies. Naruto never got involved with it. There was no need for a strategy if he was going to face an army of weak shinobi who could not make him sweat. He just needed them to be test dummies for his jutsus. They are on their way. Naruto looked to see Zetsu. When did you get here? A day ago, Naruto nodded. He did need to know why he did not inform him that he had arrived at the village. He had no problems with it, as long as he was there when he was needed. Zetsu was someone he could count on. There was no need for him to question. He was probably spying on Yagura. Shall we? Naruto said getting up from his position. He picked up his gunbai and strapped it on his back. Zetsu sank to the ground without saying anything. Without warning or telling anyone, Naruto began to move towards the direction in which Yagura's men were marching. He was feeling a bit excited by the prospect of having to finally get a field where he could go wild, a field to perform a few tests and enjoy a good fight. It was definitely going to be good to fight against multiple opponents while he was just one man. It did not take long for Mei and her men to follow behind him. Mei rushed up to get to him, leaving her men behind. You look rather happy, she commented upon seeing the look on his face. That is because I am happy, Naruto replied. So are you going to summon the Kyuubi? If you or tell me, I don't want to have my men caught up in its path. No, but you can tell your men to stay back until Yagura shows up. Naruto stated. You are going to fight more than 2,000 shinobi alone without the Kyuubi. Yes, Naruto replied as if it was not a big deal. He increased his pace, leaving Mei behind him. Mei frowned seeing him leave like that. She was worried about him. She did not know how powerful he was, but fighting against more than 2,000 shinobi on his own was being reckless. She sighed and looked back at her men who had caught up to her. Let's go, but we will keep out distance. We will only observe. You will engage the enemy when I tell you to. Mei stated her orders. Her men did not question her. She was the leader and thus, knew what was best. They began to move on towards their enemy. After a few minutes, they hid themselves a distance away from Yagura's army who were now standing still with one man standing in front of them. Is he thinking of fighting them alone? One man asked. He is crazy, another yelled out. Yugao, who was in the front line, saw Naruto and widened her eyes. She was about to run towards him, but was stopped by Mei. Don't. You can't just let him go there alone. Yugao said, her voice raised, showing just how much she disagreed with the situation. Even though Mei wanted to send her men and engage Yagura's army as she was worried about Naruto, she found herself saying a few simple words, just watch. Yagura's army stood still watching Naruto. The ones in the front lines could sense the Mei's army was already in position. They stood still watching Naruto, wondering what he might do. Surely he did not wish to engage an army by himself. If he did something, it would be suicide. Anyone who had things working properly in their heads could conclude that. What is this? Did that bitch Mei send you to try to stop us? A man in his late 30s said, looking insulted by the fact that only a single boy was standing in front of them. Let's just kill him and move on. Another said, earning a resounding approval from the others. Naruto could not help but smile at the shinobi before him. Well then, shall we? Naruto, as he charged at the army. They stood still, trying to think if he was serious about engaging them in a fight. He was just one man, for God's sake. Naruto did not care for what they were thinking. He simply charged at the army. He jumped up and fell inside the sea of shinobi. It did not take a second long for one to charge at him with a sword raised. Naruto ducked under the swipe and kicked the man at his chest. Faster than any could see, he sped through a set of hand seals. Fire style. Majestic flame destroyer. A wave of hot flames was expelled from his mouth. The jutsu spread out wide. The Kiri shinobi who were not expecting the jutsu to spread out wide and to be used were unfortunate. Because Naruto was standing in the middle of them, they could not use their own jutsus to attack. The majestic flames burned more than 100 men alive that were close to Naruto when he expelled the jutsu. Some were fortunate enough not to get caught in the jutsu. Naruto had used the jutsu simply to create a space between him and the army. It would give him more breathing space to do what he wanted. Naruto charged at the disorientated shinobi. A man was caught within his range by a kick to the temple that sent him flying towards the others. Naruto began to deliver hits from shinobi to shinobi. No one was able to land a hit of him as he made his charge. He was only engaging them in taijutsu battle as he wanted to see how his Sharingan and taijutsu fared against a number of shinobi. When he was satisfied with the results, he jumped away from Yagura's army. 4 clones appeared beside him. The clones had their own assignment to do. Therefore, they disappeared from view off to begin their assignments. Naruto went through hand seals before slamming his hands on the ground. Wood release. Piercing spikes. A large number of spikes shot out from the ground and flew towards the enemy. The wooden spikes were sharp and a single hit could pierce through flesh and leave a nasty wound. The spikes could also kill should they hit a vital point of the body. The spikes fell like rain at Yagura's army. Naruto smiled slightly as he watched them dance around to the song his spikes were singing. The attack in his previous had managed to scatter the army, forcing them in groups, creating distances around them. A few were pierced by the spikes, some killed as the spikes hit vital points on the body, some were left bleeding heavily. Others were able to use earth jutsus as protective shields. Water release. Water dragon. A random shinobi yelled, expelling a large water dragon towards Naruto, looking to catch him off guard. Naruto knew that water dragons could be controlled remotely. Therefore, trying to avoid it would be pointless. He went through his own hand seals. Fire release. Fire dragon. He yelled as he released a fire dragon equally to the water dragon. The jutsus met in between and tried to push each other for dominance. A smoke of steam was conceived because of the two elements pushing each other for dominance. In the end, there was no winner. Water release. Water bullet. A water bullet sped towards Naruto in great speed. Naruto was on alert. He leapt into the air. Gravity did its duty in pulling him down. As he landed down, a large explosion occurred in the air. He looked up and saw a cloud of flames spreading across the battlefield, covering a distance of around 300 meters. Naruto smiled. His clones had completed their jobs. Each clone had disguised itself, and all 4 surrounded the army before firing the majestic fire destruction, each into the air. After that, they would have to stand still in concentration to contain the flames together. The jutsus colliding had caused the explosion. Yagura's army stood still with wide eyes as they stared at the cloud of flames. There was no mistake, it was flames. They could feel the intense heat of the flames. If the flames were to just drop on them, they would be killed. Many of the ninjas begun to run around trying to get away from the range of the flames. What the hell is that? A man from Mei's army yelled, staring at the large cloud of flames hovering in the air. They were all shocked. They had never seen anything like it before. He is preparing for a jutsu, outdeduced, staring at the flames. One thing was certain: it had to take a lot of chakra to put those flames in the air. It also had to take almost perfect chakra control to keep those flames in the air. Ao was impressed. Whatever it is not something I would like to go against. Imagine if those flames just dropped. How do you defend yourself against something that is falling off the sky? Another man stated, repressing a shudder as he thought what would happen if the flames were to drop on top of them. Mei simply stared, wondering what Naruto wanted to do. She could as well say that he was also not kidding when he said he wanted to test a few things. She was also glad that he was doing well. Regardless, it was just a matter of time before the army overwhelmed him. When that does happen, I will be ready to rescue you, Naruto. Mei thought to herself. Naruto quickly went through 35 hand seals as he took control of the flames. He held a tiger seal. Fire release. Crying heavens, he muttered. A scene that many would never forget occurred. It began to rain. Raindrops fell from the sky as the flame cloud wept. The rain was not a normal rain. Instead of water, it was raining fire. It started slowly before all hell broke loose as the flames began to rain heavily on Yagura's army. The flame drop's heat was intense. Pain and death awaited for those unlucky to be caught in the rain. Those who knew earth jutsus did them to hide under. The earth would protect them from the rain if it did not melt from the intense heat of the flames. Because the flames were raining heavily, some who had buried themselves underground remained there. A few tried using water jutsus, shooting them to the sky. That only served as temporary protection, because as soon as their jutsus died down, the rain fell on them. Others who were overwhelmed with fear just danced around as the flames fell on them. Others did the smart thing and ran away from the rain as it was not raining across the entire battlefield. It rained for 3 minutes without stopping. When it finally stopped raining, shinobis were scattered around the battlefield. Some lying down on the ground burned, dead. Some had their bodies breathing out steam as their bodies had suffered major burns. A large number of Yagura's army who were not within the range of the flames stood at the scene before them with wide eyes. This was not something that one expected to see. If they had been told that they were signing up for this, they probably would have never signed up for the war. The horrors were not over yet as a thick fire cloud loomed over the sky above them. Many began to take a few steps back in fear of the rain falling again. Rebels, even though they are our enemies, I cannot wish for anyone to die like that. A young woman stated, looking at the battlefield. Her words earned silent nods from her comrades. I'm just happy that he is not our enemy, another stated, earning nods from his comrades. Yugao just watched, with shock written all over her face. 10 years ago, when Naruto was still running around Konoha screaming about being Hokage, if someone had told her at that time that Naruto would be able to do things like what she now witnessing him do, she would have snapped their necks. She had never thought that he would be able to cause so much death, a sense of dread within his enemies. Mei just stared at Naruto. Her eyes were not focused on a Yagura's army, no, she had her eyes at Naruto. She could now see why he did not even bother to summon the Kyuubi. Yagura's army was now below 2,000 and Naruto had been doing all the destruction himself. Back at the battlefield, Naruto smiled seeing the success of his jutsu. The jutsu was performed perfectly and the damage it caused was perfect. The training had been worth it. Now for some fireworks, Naruto said to himself as he clasped his hands together. He moved the flame cloud above a large group of shinobi. Upon realization of what was above them, they began to scream, running around in an attempt to escape the shadow of the flames. Naruto wasted no time. Flame cloud began to descend down on the enemy. The 4 clones jumped into midair and surrounded the flames. They all stretched out their hands. Upon doing that, the cloud began to take a shape of a round swirling ball of flames. One of the clones began to form a set of hand seals. The swirling ball of flames was now going to hit the ground in the battleground. The clone which had been making hand seals fired a torrent of lighting towards the ball of flames. The ball became unstable with the 2 elements as they were not balanced to remain intact with each other. The clones puffed away from existence when the unstable ball was just touching distance away from the ground. Lightning flame explosion, Naruto muttered as the flames sparkling with electricity hit the ground and exploded. Boom. The explosion was big, it shook the entire battlefield. The explosion lifted large amounts of rocks and dust. It also created a large shockwave that rocked the entire battlefield. The shockwave was so powerful that it blew away every shinobi that was within its range. The enemies that were caught in explosion screamed as lightning and fire tore through their bodies. As soon as the debris cleared, all eyes widened. There was a large crater in the middle of the battlefield. It went better than I had expected since I had yet to try it out, Naruto said to himself. Rebels after getting over her shock, Mei looked at Ao, what happened? When you saw the clones surrounding the fireball, they were not just changing its shape, they were adding more chakra to it and compressing it. Ao said. It was just a compressed ball of energy, and when it hit the ground, all the compressed energy with the lightning it all went. The large crater explained how it all went. But to be able to do something like that you need to have high-level chakra control and a high level of concentration. I bet he was able to focus on his jutsu by the thought that no one in the battlefield would be able to touch him. Mei thought to herself. Battlefield. If some shinobi in Yagura's army thought Naruto was done, they thought wrong. Naruto began to charge towards a group of shinobi. They took notice of him and steeled themselves to get into fighting positions. Water release. Water gun, a shinobi yelled, releasing a stream of jet water that sped towards Naruto. Naruto, seeing the attack, held a single hand seal and gathered chakra within his lungs. Fire release. Great fireball, he muttered as a large fireball was expelled from his mouth towards the enemy. The two jutsus met in between and began to push each other for dominance. Water release. Water gun, another shinobi yelled as he added to the strength of his comrade's jutsu. The combined water gun pushed Naruto's jutsu back, forcing him to release his jutsu and leap away to avoid being hit by the two jutsus. As soon as he landed a few feet away, Naruto was assaulted by fireball. It was a lot weaker and smaller than his. Naruto was surprised to see Kiri shinobi using fire techniques given their reliance to use water jutsus. He jumped away from the fireball, avoiding it. He landed a few feet away to the ground and looked around the battlefield. Now that the shinobi were scattered across the battlefield, they could attack him easily with their jutsus without fear of catching their own with their own jutsus. Naruto had not complaints over it, it made things a bit interesting for him to say the least. Naruto began to run towards another group of shinobi. He sped towards them with incredible speed. Without even a warning, he appeared in front of a shinobi in air and descended down towards the shinobi. He landed a 2-foot kick on the man's chest. Naruto used the man's body as ground to jump into another man. The man seemed to have been waiting for him as he swung his sword towards Naruto's face. Naruto grabbed another ninja close to him and used him as shield to defend himself against the sword swipe. He threw the man away he had used as a shield and lunged at the man who almost cut him. He landed a kick on the man's temple, sending him flying. 4 men surrounded him, all looking to attack him. One threw an explosive tag towards him. Naruto quickly deflected it back to the enemy and jumped away from them to avoid getting caught within what was to happen. Boom. The explosive tag exploded, blowing all the 4 men away. Naruto landed a distance away. He looked at his right to see a wave of kunais flying towards him. Looking at them carefully with his Sharingan eyes, he could see that they had explosive tags. He went through hand seals, wind release, wind palm. Naruto's wind jutsu deflected all the kunais that were thrown at him, sending them away from him. Naruto was not given more time to think about anything else. Earth release. Earth spikes. The ground underneath Naruto began to shake as the earth formed sharp spikes and sprout out from the ground. Naruto disappeared from his position in a burst of speed. The moment he landed, another jutsu came flying towards him. Wind release. Wind dragon. This time Naruto could not dodge as the jutsu hit him dead on. It did not do any damage to him though. All it did was send him flying, to which Naruto flipped several times in midair and landed on the ground in a crouched position. He got up slowly and dusted himself. His armor had several scratches because of the sharp blades caused by the wind dragon. They are working together with their attacks now, Naruto stated as he observed the now gathered army. They realized that with them having scattered around the battlefield, it made things easy for him to attack them. It also made it easy for them, but so far, it was working for him better than them. Naruto looked up as he saw about 100 men throw shurikens towards him. There was no dodging them. Naruto unstrapped his gunbai for the first time since entering the battlefield. He held it firmly with his right hand before swinging. It released gusts of winds that peeled off chunks of earth as they headed towards the projectiles thrown towards Naruto. As soon as the projectiles made contact with the gusts of winds released by Naruto's gunbai, they were deflected away from Naruto. Naruto placed his gunbai back on his back and began to form hand seals. Wind release. Wind tornado, he muttered as 3 wind tornadoes began to spin around him furiously. Naruto clasped his hands together and the 3 tornadoes united, forming one large roaring tornado. The tornado was picking up debris as it rotated around. Naruto looked at the tornado. His eyes morphed into his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu, he muttered, setting the tornado ablaze with the black flames of Amaterasu. He had set the correct ratio of both elements, or else they combination would blow up. The tornado became dark as it now became a fire tornado. Naruto allowed the tornado to rush towards the enemy. The technique was a large scale of his blazing tornado. This was made with a large number of enemies in mind. The attack neared the enemy, who kept shooting water-based jutsus to try and extinguish the flames. Unfortunately for them, the black flames were not ordinary flames. Therefore, regardless of their attempts to stop the technique, it just passed through their own without much difficulty. The tornado consumed more than 50 men within it, chewing them. They let loose of some pained screams as the blazing tornado cooked them as they rotated in fast speeds within it. The jutsu finally died down, leaving black fire around the battlefield still alive, burning brightly and slowly on the ground. Naruto went through hand seals, fire release, majestic flame destroyer. Naruto yelled as he released his wave of flames that spread out wide, rushing towards Yagura's army like a sea wave. They saw the attack coming and knew how to survive. Water release, water encampment wall. Multiple shinobi yelled, creating a wall of water to block Naruto's jutsu from getting to them. The several water walls formed one large water wall that spread out wide, matching Naruto's jutsus. The 2 jutsus came head-on and pushed each other. In the end, there was no winner as the contest between the fire element and water element left only a cloud of steam between Naruto and Yagura's army. Naruto did not wait for the steam to die down. He charged towards the army. He had one man yell, "He is coming." He figured the man must have been a sensor to sense him with the cloud of steam. Naruto went through hand seals as he jumped in air, fire release, majestic fire destruction. Naruto expelled a stream of flames that sped toward the targets. The targets had not expected to see another attack flying toward them. The unlucky shinobi were unfortunate when the flames hit them before exploding into a sea of flames, thus burning everything within them to dust. Naruto was doing well in crippling Yagura's army. The army was taking heavy losses because of Naruto's destructive jutsus. Most of them were hard for them to defend, to some it just seemed impossible to defend against some of the jutsus. 2 men screamed as they charged towards Naruto with their kunais at hand. They surrounded him and lunged themselves at him. One flanked him at his front, while the other charged at him on his back. Naruto brought out his sword to parry a kunai that was coming towards his face. The man on his back was already onto him. He tried to stab him on his back while he was still parrying the attack from his comrade. With fluid movements, Naruto pushed the other man back, causing him to lose his balance. Naruto spun around quickly to block the kunai that was about to stab him on the back. Without even looking back, he raised up his foot and delivered a kick to the chest to the other man who was trying to regain his footing. He stared the man at his eyes before the man froze with wide eyes. Naruto wasted no time in driving his sword through the man's chest. He grabbed the man by his left hand. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his right. More than 20 different jutsus of different elements were coming towards him on different directions. Naruto looked at the other man. He had already recovered from his kick and was charging towards him. Decoys, Naruto muttered, concluding that the 2 men were just decoys sent to keep him busy while the others prepared the jutsus that were being thrown at him. All the jutsus neared him before hitting him dead on, along with the other man from Yagura's army. A large explosion rocked the battlefield again, picking up debris. The enemy was starting to celebrate as their jutsus got a direct hit on their enemy. He could be counted as such now that they have seen what he is capable of, after seeing the deaths he inflicted on their comrades. And also the fact that he was fighting against them. Their celebrations were cut short when the debris cleared around Naruto and revealed him to be in perfect health. There was not a single scratch on him. He did not look like he was hit by several jutsus. He stood still with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan activated. "Attack him again," another man yelled. The others went through hand seals. They charged several jutsus at Naruto again. The jutsus came at different directions as they sped towards Naruto. The way at which the attacks were coming at him, it gave him no place to hide if he wanted to. Naruto remained still with the jutsu speeding towards him. He had his hands folded across his chest. We will get him this time. There is no way he can survive an attack of this magnitude. Another yelled with confidence. No man could survive the kind of attack they fired at Naruto. Their hopes of killing him crumbled down within seconds as Naruto appeared standing without a scratch on him. It was just impossible for someone to survive an attack like the one they threw at him. More than shocking is the fact that Naruto did not even have a scratch on him, like their attacks did not even touch him. Naruto eyed around the battlefield. There was still many shinobi on their feet. The others were either dead or just rendered immobile. He went through hand seals gathering the needed chakra for his jutsu. Wood release. Deep forest emergence. The ground began to shake as large roots sprout out from the ground and charged towards his opponents. They could only stare as the techniques headed towards them. One thing was certain, if it reached them, they were going to die. We cannot allow the technique to get to us. One man yelled, deciding to be brave for everyone so that they could survive. What do you suggest we do then? We intercept it with our own techniques, he replied firmly. They nodded and released fire, lightning, earth and wind-based techniques towards Naruto's jutsu. The jutsu collided, creating a large explosion. When the explosion died down, there was no jutsu still active. The jutsus had cancelled each other. Ho! Naruto smiled. They stopped my jutsu, he said to himself. I shall reward them. The orange Susanoo flared up to life, shocking his opponents. They stared the beast with wide eyes. What the hell is that? The voice of the man who asked was clearly trembling in fear. He got no response though. Naruto did several hand seals before holding a tiger seal. His Susanoo held a tiger seal the same time as he did. He was preparing for his next jutsu that could only be performed by his Susanoo. What the hell do you think he is going to do now? I don't know. Whatever it is, I have a bad feeling about this. Naruto's Susanoo opened its mouth and began to charge chakra. The chakra became the shape of an orange ball. The orange ball came out of its mouth, floated in the air. The Susanoo's eyes flashed red for a moment before the chakra ball sped towards the enemy. It suddenly stopped in the middle of them, and they stared at it while taking a few steps away from it. Explode, Naruto muttered. Boom. 2/13. 4:18 p.m. Atharva Patal. The orange chakra ball exploded. The explosion created a large shockwave that threatened even the rebels who were watching not far away from the battlefield. The explosion itself peeled off large chunks of earth like a bomb had been dropped on the battlefield. Large mushroom on debris was formed where the explosion had been set off. Naruto had his Susanoo to protect him from the explosion. After a few minutes, the debris died down, revealing a large crater in the battlefield. The crater was bigger than the one created by the lightning flame explosion. The technique was created by studying Bijumuda. It required gathering large amounts of chakra and compressing it to a small ball of chakra. It required high level of concentration to compress the chakra. Without proper control or a mistake done while compressing, the chakra would become unstable and detonate. It would end up nasty for the user upon the unstable chakra setting off. Naruto was now inside the crater formed by his technique. He studied his surroundings with his eyes before dispersing his Susanoo and deactivating his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Yagura's army and the rebels only asked themselves one single question: what is he? The latest attack had left less than 700 shinobi standing and more than 450 immobile. Those standing did not seem like they wanted to continue fighting. Naruto walked over to one man who was close to him. The man, seeing Naruto, began to take a few steps away from him. He was trembling with fear. His body was screaming for him to run away. Stay back. The man yelled out, looking at Naruto with an unfocused vision. Naruto finally got close to the man and gripped him by his neck before lifting him up into the air. You no longer wish to dance with me? Naruto asked, tightening his grip on the man's neck. Naruto narrowed his eyes to his right. A wave of water collided with him and sent him flying. Naruto flipped in midair and landed on the ground after the force of the attack that had hit him was no longer compelling him. Naruto looked behind him to see the rebels towards the battlefield with loud noises. Mei was leading her men towards the battlefield. Naruto looked back at the person who was walking calmly towards him. So you are the nuisance that has crippled my army, the person exclaimed calmly looking at Naruto. Nuisance? Naruto questioned looking at the person. He did not wait for an answer as he spoke again. You must the Yondaime Mizukage, Yagura. Naruto stated looked at the now identified Mizukage. I have come to end you. I have allowed you to do as you please for too long, but unfortunately, I must end you. Yagura stated completely ignoring Naruto's words. Aloud. Naruto questioned again. You speak as if you could actually stop me if you wanted to. Naruto stated with narrowed eyes. That is because I can stop you. I am rather impressed by your abilities but I am not like my men and there is reason I am the Mizukage, Yagura stated keeping his tone calm. Can you really do it? Yes, I can. Do you want to find out? Before either could do anything, Mei appeared beside Naruto. She had a usually kind smile even at the face of the battlefield. Mei looked at Naruto. He did not have a single bruise on his body. He seemed to be in perfect condition despite all the power he had exerted during his fight with Yagura's army and all the attacks they had thrown at him. Even seeing that was fine, Mei felt the urge to ask him if he was fine. Are you alright, Naruto? Naruto looked at the woman for a moment before looking back at Yagura. First Yugao was worrying about him when she found out he could summon the Kyuubi. Now it was Mei. He had been reading people for all his life. Reading people had been his only tool for survival. Right now with that single glance at Mei, he could tell that the woman was concerned. Why did they have to worry about him? Sure, he had saved Yugao, but he was only repaying her a favor. With Mei, he was helping her by fighting Yagura and his army. But why did they have to worry about him? Who did they think he was? He was not someone they could call friend or anyone else and yet they worry about him. Not even Madara showed concern when speaking to him after he had revealed himself as his grandfather. Perhaps he never showed he was worried for him because he knew he could take care of himself. I'm fine, he replied after a few thoughts had passed through his head. You should go and fight with your men. I will take care of the Mizukage. Naruto stated. You have been fighting all this time without rest. You should rest while I fight Yagura. Mei said not wanting him to put himself in danger. Naruto looked at Mei with a straight face. I do not need rest, he replied. Mei frowned slightly. This was not working. Why does he persist to fight on his own while she could fight? She also had cage-level strength. She could hold her own against Yagura. No, it was not that Naruto did not acknowledge her or anything. He just wanted to fight on his own. She could say that he wanted to have all the fun for himself. How could he be so selfish? Mei thought looking at Naruto. Naruto hand a single hand seal. Kai, he muttered releasing some of his chakra that was sealed. The wind around him began to pick up for a second before dying down. Naruto held out his hand and looked at it. This should help my chakra levels rise again, Naruto thought to himself. I may have more chakra than people could imagine but even with that it is not unlimited, well it does not matter anyway. You should go, Naruto stated looking at Yagura who seemed to be waiting patiently for them to finish talking. Mei sighed. Fine, but I will not be far, she replied in a defeated tone. Getting Naruto to rest while she fights Yagura was one war she could never win. Shall we Yondaime? Naruto asked looking at the Yondaime Mizukage. Yagura said not word further. He simply vanished and appeared in front of Naruto. It was rather some impressive speed, Naruto would agree. The Mizukage was shorter than Naruto in height when he stood in front of Naruto. With speed that would be blinding to any normal shinobi, Yagura drove his right fist towards Naruto's gut. His opponent was also fast and had very good reflexes. Naruto intercepted Yagura's punch with his own. The punches collided and caused sparks to fly around them. Yagura retrieved his fist before he tried a roundhouse kick at Naruto. He swung his leg towards Naruto looking to kick him away. The attack was still visible before Naruto's eyes. He brought out his own leg to block the attack. As soon as his legs collided, Naruto moved his other leg and attempted to kick Yagura on his temple. Yagura retrieved his leg and quickly brought out his arms to block the kick. Naruto having his attack blocked and without having his legs to support him, he began to fall down the ground but quickly brought out his hands and used them as support. His front was left vulnerable to an attack. His opponent took the chance and jumped in air before descending to the ground. He attempted to kick Naruto at the back of his foot. Naruto seeing that he was going to get hit. He stopped using his hands as support means and fell to the ground on his back. He positioned his hands on his front. Yagura's kick collided with his hands and tried to break through the defense, but there was no luck. The attack forced Naruto to the ground, creating a small crater where he laid with his hands crossed at his front and Yagura on top of him. Yagura stopped pushing power to his kick and tried to jump away. However, before he could go anywhere, Naruto was already in front of him. Naruto was not wasting any time in attacking the Jinchuriki. He swung his right foot towards Yagura, who brought out his left hand to block the kick. He succeeded in blocking Naruto's kick. Naruto responded by bringing out his other foot and attempted to kick Yagura. This time his kick connected with Yagura's head, sending him flying away. Naruto stood still as he watched Yagura recover from the kick that sent him flying. He landed on the ground with both his legs. Both charged at each other before engaging in a fierce taijutsu battle. Their taijutsu battle created small shockwaves around the battle. Others could only see blurs, as they were moving at a faster speed of cage level. Naruto blocked all of Yagura's attempts to hit him. Yagura was relentless in his attacks. He kept going after Naruto, trying to penetrate through his defense, but he had no success. They separated, creating a distance between them. Naruto ran towards Yagura after they had separated. Upon reaching the Yondaime, he threw a right hook punch at Yagura. The Mizukage saw the attack coming and leaned back to avoid being hit by Naruto's fist. The punch seemed to have a lot of power behind it, as he felt small winds hit his face as the punch passed by him. Naruto spun around and came back facing his opponent with his right foot raised. Yagura could not escape the kick in time, thus he brought out both his hands to block the spinning kick. Yagura was able to block but only came to regret his choice as he winced in when Naruto's kick connected with his hands. It felt like a brick had hit him. The force of the attack made him lose his balance, giving Naruto the chance to attack again. Faster than one could see, Naruto moved closer to Yagura and kneed him on the gut, causing Yagura to wince again as it felt like something heavy had crashed to his gut. He shrugged the pain off though and attempted to retaliate by punching Naruto in the face. Naruto ducked under the punch and kicked Yagura on the chest. Yagura lost his footing and was about to fall down when Naruto grabbed him by his hand. Naruto grabbed Yagura's hand tightly and spun around a few times while still holding Yagura. After he had gained enough momentum, he let go of Yagura, sending the Mizukage away from him in flight. As soon as he let go of Yagura, Naruto began to form hand seals, fire release, fire breath. Naruto breathed out a jet stream of hot flame towards Yagura, who was still in flight after being thrown away by Naruto. The flames traveled in great speed towards the Yondaime, glaring at him as they sought to drip their fangs on his skin. Yagura cursed as he saw the flame coming towards him. The speed to which he was flying at made it difficult for him to get out of the way, as he had yet to regain his balance. If he had his balance, he could just simply dodge the jutsu. That was out of the question though, he could not dodge the flames in his current position. He may not be able to balance himself, but he could still use his ninjutsu. The flames collided with Yagura and began to burn him. Naruto watched as the flames died, leaving nothing. Mizu Bunshin, Naruto thought as he landed down the ground. Yagura appeared behind Naruto and began to form hand seals. The fact that he was the Sanbi's Jinchuriki gave him a higher control over the water element. Water was his Biju's natural element. Water release. Exploding water shock wave. Yagura yelled as he released a large wave of water. The water wave was almost big as Naruto's majestic flame destroyer. Yagura began to ride on the wave at a fast speed. Naruto, seeing the water coming towards him, he unstrapped his gunbai and positioned it in front of him. Gunbai barrier, he muttered as he channeled chakra through his gunbai. A barrier erected around him, shielding him from Yagura's attack. The wave swallowed Naruto under it and the water calmed down. The water became like a sea in the middle of the large crater to which the fight was occurring. When the water calmed down, Naruto was seen standing with his gunbai still positioned in front of him. The image only lasted for a second as Naruto placed his gunbai back to his back. The attack had done nothing to him with his gunbai barrier erected. Naruto looked at water. That was the result of Yagura's jutsu. The water would not doubt give him an advantage in being able to use water jutsu. Some water jutsus required a source of water to be able to be performed. The large amount of water that was now abundant in the battlefield would make it easy for Yagura to do water-based jutsus. Nevertheless, it did not matter anyway. It was not as if the results would be the different even with the advantage. Yagura shot towards Naruto in blinding speeds. Naruto, seeing his opponent coming, readied himself. He just had to make sure that he had chakra under his feet to keep balance since they were now fighting onto a sea of water. Yagura reached Naruto with his right fist raised and threw the fist towards Naruto's temple. Seeing the punch before his eyes, Naruto did not allow it to connect with his face. He brought out his hand and blocked Yagura's punch. Despite the fact that Yagura was smaller than Naruto, had to admit, the man did know how to pack a punch. Yagura, seeing that his attempt to smack Naruto in the face was a failure, he used his other arm to punch Naruto. Again, Naruto blocked. Yagura began to throw punch after punch at Naruto, who was dodging and blocking each punch. Yagura leapt into the air before descending down towards Naruto with both his legs pressed together. He was looking for a 2-foot kick on Naruto. An assault as this carried more weight than a single leg kick. Naruto leapt backwards away from the attack. With his target having avoided him, Yagura crashed into the ground with both his feet. While Yagura was still grounded down, Naruto landed a distance away from him. Naruto looked behind him at the corner of his eye as he sensed something. Another Yagura appeared behind him with a swinging his right foot. Naruto spun around to block the attack. Yagura had calculated this. Another him appeared behind Naruto just as he had spun around. The two Yaguras kicked Naruto and sent him rocketing away. One of the Yaguras crumbled down and became one with the water. Naruto flipped several times after being kicked and landed down with chakra on his feet to balance himself on the water. He regained his complete balance and looked back at Yagura. Yagura did not give Naruto much time to look at him, he rushed towards him in cage-level speed. Upon reaching Naruto, he leapt into the air and flipped once. While he was in air, his body was now facing the ground. He descended towards Naruto and attempted a kick on top of Naruto's head. His opponent was easily able to read into the move and bring out both his hands to block the attack. Yagura's foot connected with his hands and forced him to the ground a bit due to the power of the kick and the position in which Yagura was. Yagura's whole body weight was on top of him, giving his kick more power. Regardless, Naruto held his ground and pushed Yagura away. The Mizukage flipped in midair before landing on the ground. He did not waste time to charge at Naruto again. He appeared to lunge himself at Naruto's left side before completely disappearing and appeared on Naruto's right side. His foot was swung towards Naruto's waist level. The attack would have managed to hit anyone else, but not Naruto. He was able to see through Yagura with his eyes to move to counter-attack. He spun around to face Yagura with his foot raised, kicking towards Yagura's incoming kick. The kicks collided and pushed each other for dominance. The stronger kick would push the weaker back, giving advantage to the stronger. Yagura, seeing his attack blocked, brought back his foot before swinging another. Naruto leapt back to avoid Yagura's attempt to kick him. He landed a few feet away from the Mizukage. Without further ado, he charged at Yagura, appearing in front of him. He brought out his right hand and attempted to punch Yagura on his gut. The Mizukage, being experienced in battles, jumped back quickly, narrowly avoiding Naruto's punch. As soon as Yagura landed down, Naruto was again in front of him. He was going for a roundhouse kick on Yagura, which was blocked rather easily by the Mizukage. Naruto blurred out of Yagura's front and appeared behind him. He had moved in such speed that surprised the Mizukage. Yagura did not have time to block or dodge as Naruto's kick connected with Yagura's back and sent him flying. Yagura winced as he felt like he was hit by steel at his back. Naruto kicked hard, even the punches were painful. While Yagura was still in flight, Naruto appeared above him and kicked him to the ground. Yagura went down towards the water in a fast speed. He crashed down the water, separating the water. Naruto landed a few feet away from where Yagura had crashed. Yagura recovered quickly and appeared from the water, albeit soaked. He stared at Naruto as he went through hand seals. Water release. Water dragon, he yelled. Capitalizing on the water lying around the battlefield, he created a large water dragon. He created it through the manipulation of his water affinity. The large dragon formed and steadied as its eyes trained on Naruto, its prey. Naruto looked at the water dragon impassively. He knew that the water dragon could be controlled remotely. There was no use for to try to dodge or running away from the jutsu. It would seek him out till it hit. He began to form his own hand seals as Yagura's water dragon charged towards him. Fire release. Majestic fire destruction. Naruto breathed out a stream of flames of intense heat. The flames spread towards the water dragon that was still on its charge towards him. The flames and the water dragon collided. Naruto's flames exploded into a sea of flames upon hitting their target. The water dragon was consumed by the sea of flames. The hot flames melted the flames nothing more than steam. The flames also reduced the water in the battlefield considerably, creating a cloud of steam. When the cloud finally cleared, all the jutsus had died down and neither of the users were in danger of any sort. Other than the fact that Yagura was slightly panting, he was all right. He had yet to receive any real damage from his battle with Naruto. On the other side, Naruto was in perfect condition. He was tired slightly, he just was not showing it. The chakra he had released replenished his reserves. However, that was not the only good thing about the stored-up chakra. It also replenished his energy. Naruto could as well say that it worked as a soldier pill. After recovering his breath, Yagura charged at the unmoving figure of Naruto. The blonde-haired Sharingan user was just standing there motionless as if waiting for Yagura to attack him. Yagura appeared in front of Naruto and spun around, attempted a back kick, and Naruto deflected the kick by his own leg. He withdrew his sword from its sash. Holding it tightly on its handle, he slashed it vertically at Yagura. Without a proper weapon to defend against the sword, Yagura jumped back to avoid being cut. You could not fight against someone with a sword when you did not have it. Dodging was the only way he could fight. Naruto lunged himself in front of Yagura, not giving him much time to plan for a way to fight. He swung his left foot towards Yagura, forcing him to bring out his hands to block the kick. Naruto was expecting Yagura to do just that. He put more power behind his kick, causing Yagura to lose his footing. Naruto slashed his sword across Yagura's chest. With his hands occupied by Naruto's kick, Yagura had no way to defend himself. Regardless of that, he was not some weak shinobi. He allowed his body to lean back despite not having complete balance over his body. His action did enough to avoid the sword from leaving a large gash on his chest. The tip of the sword cut across his chest, leaving him bleeding slightly. Naruto not leave things as they were. He delivered a knee to Yagura's gut while the man was still processing the fact that he had been cut. He jumped up and spun around, delivering a hard kick on Yagura's face, sending him flying away. Naruto flicked his blade, banishing the blood that was dripping from it after he had cut Yagura. With the blood gone, he placed it back to its sash and waited to Yagura to regain his bearings. After crashing down, Yagura got up panting slightly and swiped the blood that was leaking off his mouth. He stood still for a moment staring at Naruto. The blonde was still in good condition while he had a cut across his chest, though not deep, it was still a cut. The strain of the fight was already taking toll on his body. Naruto went through hand signs, seeing the Yagura was now up. There was nothing keeping him from attacking Yagura right now. He channeled the required chakra and turned it into fire before expelling it. Fire release, majestic flame destruction. A large wave of flames spreading across the battlefield sped towards Yagura. Yagura channeled much of his chakra and manipulated the water in the battlefield to create a water wall. The water wall held on for a little while before the overwhelming flames pushed through. Naruto narrowed his eyes behind him as the flames died down. There was no water left in the battlefield due to Naruto's jutsu. Behind him, Yagura was on his knees panting. A part of his body was slightly burned by the flames Naruto had unleashed towards him. Naruto turned around and walked towards the kneeling Mizukage. He then picked up his pace, speeding fast towards the tired-looking opponent. Yagura rose up from his kneeling position upon seeing Naruto charge towards him. He stood up and took a defensive stance. Naruto appeared in front of him. Before Naruto could do anything, Yagura threw a punch at Naruto's face. Naruto ducked under punch before delivering a punch of his own to Yagura's gut. He proceeded to punch Yagura twice on the face before gripping his neck tightly, causing him to gasp for air. Naruto slammed the Mizukage down the ground with so much force that created a small crater where Yagura had hit. Naruto jumped away from Yagura while still in flight. He went through hand seals, fire release, phoenix flower, he muttered as he released fireballs that went down to Yagura like meteorites. Yagura regained his bearings and stood up before going through hand seals, water release, water wall. He yelled as he expelled water from his mouth that created a wall in front of him. The wall protected him from the fireballs, as the fireballs did not penetrate through his defense. Naruto landed down the ground gracefully. He did a few hand seals, wind release, wind palm, he muttered as he sent a gust of wind toward the unmoving form of Yagura. The wind hit Yagura dead on, only for him to turn into a puddle of water. Naruto narrowed his eyes behind him. Water release. Water bomb. Yagura yelled as a swirling ball of water formed in front of him and sped towards Naruto. Naruto took out his gunbai and positioned it in front of him. Gunbai barrier, he muttered as he channeled chakra through his gunbai erecting a barrier. The water bomb collided with his gunbai barrier before exploding. Naruto's barrier held still protecting Naruto. When the explosion of water cleared, Naruto was standing still with his gunbai in his hand. He placed it on his back having served its purpose. Naruto saw the Yagura was on his knees again. He held a single tiger seal molding chakra. Fire release. Great fireball, he muttered and expelled a large fireball at Yagura. The fireball rushed at Yagura and hit him engulfing him in flames. Naruto sensed a burst of Biju chakra as soon the flames hit Yagura. He watched careful as the flames died down. He could feel the tailed beast chakra resonating around the battlefield. When the flames died down, Yagura was nowhere. However, there was a creature formed of crimson-red chakra. The creature had demonic eyes that stared at him deathly and three tails waving slowly behind it. Yagura had pulled out all of the Sanbi's power. You are going all out? Naruto asked, though never waited for an answer. Then I Uchiha Naruto shall respond with my full strength, he said clasping both his hands together. He began to release all of his chakra. The chakra he was releasing became visibly outwardly. Winds blew by around him causing debris to arise. The chakra resonated around the battlefield causing the few battles that were still going on to come to a halt. It was impossible for anyone not to notice the kind of power Naruto was releasing. All just watched with wide eyes. The wind around Naruto began to pick up in new strength, creating more debris than they had been. Naruto continued to unleash his power. His chakra became visibly to the naked eye. No one had ever felt so much chakra coming from a single person. The form of a sanbified Yagura never tensed as Naruto released his strength. He just stood still looking as if the chakra Naruto was releasing was of no consequence. Like the chakra was nothing. He stood still like he could handle whatever that was that Naruto could throw at him. Even the debris began to swirl around Naruto heavily. He never took a step back nor shielded his eyes from being blinded by the debris. Naruto's Susanoo flared up to life in all its orange glory. Its head gaining an even more fearsome look with the horns and eyes that seemed to be glowing with power. A strong shockwave blew dispelling the debris that had picked up around Naruto. When the debris cleared, Naruto was standing still inside his Susanoo. He stretched out his hands, not yet, he thought, and clasped his hands together. His Susanoo did the same. Another strong shockwave rocked the battlefield as Naruto released more chakra. He finally stopped and smiled slightly. His Susanoo now held two orange blades. When everything had quieted down, Yagura did not need to be told to attack Naruto. In a blinding speed he shot towards Naruto. Small chunks of earth were lifted as he shot towards Naruto. The speed he had picked up surprised him, even Naruto, but not enough to shock him or make him lose his calm. Yagura appeared in front of Naruto and crashed to his Susanoo. The attack did not break through the defense. The Susanoo stood still without breaking. Yagura leapt away from Naruto, creating a distance between him and the blonde. He charged at Naruto again, this time faster and with more power than he did before. He crashed his fist to Naruto's Susanoo. The force of the punch caused the ground beneath Naruto to change form and become a crater with chunks of earth around the Susanoo picking up. Despite that, Naruto's Susanoo held on and never broke from the attack. This forced Yagura to jump back from Naruto and attack again. This time he was attacking Naruto on different directions, trying to find the weakness of the Susanoo. After all the attempts to break the defense, Yagura was neither success nor had any luck in find a weakness. The Susanoo was like an impenetrable wall that refused to be brought down. He growled in frustration and anger. It could be frustrating to anyone when you are trying to break someone's defense and find no luck. If he could not break through Naruto's defense, then he could not touch the blonde-haired shinobi. If he had not stopped, my Susanoo would have broken, Naruto thought to himself. The punches Yagura were throwing were not just normal punches. They could destroy a man with a activated it again if it had been broken. It seems you are done, Naruto said. Then allow me to take my dance, he stated. The Susanoo brought out its right blade and swung it towards Yagura. The attack was fast but not faster than Yagura. He disappeared from the path of the blade and appeared a distance away. The blade the ground creating a large crater before being retrieved back to Naruto. Yagura sped towards Naruto. His opponent now was ready to attack him. As soon as Yagura appeared before Naruto, the Susanoo swung its blade in blinding speeds and crashed it at Yagura, sending him flying towards the ground like a bullet. Boom! Chunks of earth lifted when Yagura had hit the ground. It did not take a second for the three-tailed Yagura to stand up. He was still covered by the crimson-red chakra of the Sanbi. He did not look like he had suffered any damage from Naruto's attack. Without further ado, he charged at Naruto again. A blade of the Susanoo almost hit him as he appeared in front of Naruto. However, he disappeared in the last second to avoid being hit. He was forgetting that Naruto's Susanoo was holding two blades. The other blade that had not attacked him before crashed onto him and sent him rocketing towards the ground. The Susanoo crossed its blade in front of it. The blades began to glow bright orange before releasing and attack a wave of energy towards the fallen Yagura. The attack sped towards Yagura in blinding speeds. The attack hit the ground with a boom and left an X mark on the ground. The attack hit Yagura dead on, compelling him to the ground. Yagura rose up from the ground grudgingly. He glared at Naruto and released a roar. Naruto deactivated his Susanoo. Despite the fact that Yagura did not seem to be hurt, Naruto knew he had dealt much damage to the Jinchuriki's body. It would be soon before his body would be unable to maintain his form. Naruto charged at Yagura with his wind chakra enhanced sword. He reached Yagura and took a swipe at the Jinchuriki. The blade did not cut the chakra skin, it did not even leave a mark on Yagura. Naruto spun around and attempted to kick Yagura on the face. Yagura ducked under the kick and punched Naruto on the gut, sending him flying away. The armor did absorb most of the attack, but it still hurt. Naruto flipped several times before finally landing on the ground. As soon as Naruto landed on the ground, Yagura was already running towards him in full speed. Naruto brought out his gunbai, knowing that he could not use any part of his body to block Yagura's attacks. Yagura appeared above him with his fist going straight to his face. Naruto positioned the gunbai in front of him. The punch crashed into his gunbai. The power behind the attack pushed Naruto back and caused chunks of earth to peel off where Naruto stood. Yagura attempted a kick on Naruto's left side. Again, Naruto brought his gunbai to his left side to block the attack. The power of the attack again pushed him sideways before he stopped. Naruto leapt backwards and strapped his gunbai before going through hand seals. Fire release. Great fireball, he muttered and expelled a large fireball that rushed towards Yagura. Yagura did not attempt to dodge the attack. The flames collided with him and engulfed him. When the flames finally died down, Yagura was standing perfectly still without any damage. He tried to move but found out that he could not go away. He looked behind him and saw another Naruto kneeling behind him. His three tails were pinned to the ground by wooden sticks. The clone dispelled, having accomplished its goal. Yagura began to struggle to get loose. Naruto did not wait for Yagura to break loose, he went through hand seals, wood release, wood serpent, he muttered as a wooden snake sprouted out from the ground and rushed at a struggling Yagura. The snake wrapped itself around Yagura, restricting his movements further. However, that was not the only thing the snake was doing. It was also draining Yagura of the Sanbi's chakra. Its jutsu was a recreation of Hashirama's wood dragon that was capable of eating a Biju's chakra. Naruto cancelled his jutsu, having seen that Yagura's body was now visible. The crimson-red chakra was no longer with him. His body seemed broken and worn out. Yagura fell to the ground on his face. A few seconds passed and he tried to get up but failed miserably as his body was broken. Naruto took out his sword and took a few steps towards Yagura. His movements came to a halt when Yagura exploded in a burst of chakra, lifting up debris. When the debris cleared, the three-tailed turtle stood in front of him in all its glory. Before Naruto could even think of anything else, the Sanbi began to charge a Bijumuda. Even Naruto knew that his Susanoo could not withstand the might of the Bijumuda. The Sanbi completed forming its Bijumuda and fired it towards Naruto. Naruto sped through hand seals, wood release, wood locking wall. Naruto slammed both his hands to the ground. Wooden pillars appeared from left and right. The wooden pillars created a dome shape with Naruto in the center. The Bijumuda collided with Naruto's defense jutsu. The Bijumuda exploded in a loud boom and created large amounts of debris. When the debris cleared, Naruto was on his knees panting. He had used too much chakra on the jutsu than he had thought he would. It took a lot chakra from him to keep the dome standing up against the power of the Bijumuda. While still on his knees, Naruto held out his hand and stared at it. Hashirama was able to use this jutsu in shielding himself against the Kyuubi's Bijumuda. According to Madara, it did not take a lot from him, it even remained standing. Mine only lasted enough to shield me from the explosion and it took a lot from me. Is it because Hashirama knew how to use natural energy? Is it because his level of mastery over the wood element was far superior to mine? Naruto questioned in his own thoughts. Catching his breath, he stood up. The technique had done its job to protect him, but it left him drained for much of his chakra. Perhaps it is because I have already exerted too much chakra already. Naruto thought to himself. He looked at the Sanbi to see it charging another Bijumuda. This time he was not going to allow it to finish creating that thing again. His Susanoo flared up to life and began to charge its Susanoo bomb. It did it at a faster rate than it did before. Naruto noticed that the Sanbi was pooling much of its chakra to the Bijumuda, which would explain why it was taking long to complete. Without a second wasted, Naruto fired the Susanoo bomb towards the Sanbi. Upon colliding with it, it exploded. Naruto was also counting on the fact that since the Sanbi was going to lose its concentration on the Bijumuda, it would become unstable, then bang. The explosion shook the entire battlefield. The large cloud of debris formed on where the explosion had set off. It took several minutes for the debris to clear, allowing everyone to see a rather large crater. It was large because it was also connected with the other two craters that were formed by Naruto's attacks. Now there was only one crater. Yagura was lying in the middle of the crater. Naruto's EMS was no longer active. The Susanoo bomb had taken much of the remaining chakra he had. And also defending against the Bijumuda had taken a lot from him. Naruto was on his knees breathing heavily. With the little chakra he had now, he could not even summon the Kyuubi. A large burst of blue chakra came out of Yagura, forming a pillar that kissed the skies. The pillar of chakra lasted for a few moments before it disappeared. Naruto smiled inwardly seeing this. He heard noises coming from behind him. He looked back and saw Yugao, Mei and her army running towards him. This is going to be annoying, he said to himself. Chapter 12. Kiri Part 3. Somewhere at the outskirts of Konoha, the war hawk of Konoha, Danzo Shimura sat comfortably on his throne. He was inside his root hidden bases. His loyal Anbu were kneeling before him. They were presenting the old war hawk with the latest news on the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Ever since Naruto had made his appearance known by attacking Orochimaru, he had sent his loyal Nei to get as much information on the Kyuubi. Is this truly accurate? Danzo asked in a monotone voice. Yes, Danzo-sama, one of the men kneeling replied. Danzo frowned. The report was not what he was expecting. Naruto had become far stronger than he had anticipated. It would make things difficult for him to make the boy one of his agents. Looking at the report from Naruto's battle in Kiri, Danzo could not help but deepen his frown. If everything was indeed true, then the blonde would become difficult to control. He would only become a threat to his plans. He could not allow that. Get me Kaharu and Homura, he ordered. Without a word, the root agents were gone. Danzo smiled inwardly. Now was the time to begin plotting. Kiri heroes are born and are men who have done good deeds for their homes. They live to protect people they call their precious. It is highly unlikely for one to become hero for another country in the shinobi world. Every man fights for himself and every village for its own interest. Only a few kind people are willing to fight for another village even if it is not their jobs to do so. Those people fall in the category of real heroes. Good deeds are done, but often not many are done because one does them willingly or so because it is in their nature to do good things. Many in the shinobi world simply do good things because it is their job. Without doing good things they don't get paid, thus can't afford a living. Many ninjas, men and women alike, strive to become heroes. Not every weak and ordinary man can become a hero. But a strong and courageous man becomes a hero. So, many train hard, punishing their bodies so that they can be strong enough to be heroes for their villages. Heroes are admired at their homes for the good deeds that they do. Often some shinobi train for power simply to protect what is precious to them. That road also leads to one being a hero to those that one is precious to. Children and aspiring ninjas take heroes as their role models, shinobis to surpass. But to simply do good deeds for the fame is not a mark of a hero. The life of heroship is the life of sacrifices. Real heroes sacrifice their strength, body and mind for those that are precious to them. Many live as heroes, but often than not, some die as heroes. The life of a real hero is paved with joy, but most often heroes endure heavy mental problems with the choices they have to make. Heroes sacrifice many. The problem with sacrificing is when one starts to question what to sacrifice, what not to sacrifice. Regardless, even in the face of death, heroes are always smiling because they are at peace with themselves. They know that they have lived their life to protect what is precious to them. The mark of a true hero is not to do good things for the fame it brings. Most heroes do things in the dark. Few know the fact that they are heroes, many see them as criminals. Uchiha Itachi is a prime example of this. He massacred his own clan for the sake of Konohagakure. He killed his own clansmen so that his village would not be caught in a civil war that was to surely destroy the village. With his actions he saved so many lives, yet at the same time took so many lives. The same village he sacrificed for sees him as nothing more than a criminal and a traitor. Regardless of that, his village is still standing, not suffering or recovering from a civil war because of his sacrifice. This man is a true hero and a true shinobi. Many might not see him as such, but as long he knows it within his heart, he has no problems with how the world views him. Many people who become powerful and are admired in their villages, tend to become corrupt seeds. When you are powerful and your village admires you, you live a famous life. A life of fame, seen as a hero. Things go your way, women throw themselves at you, simply because you are powerful and cool. Villagers respect you for your strength. People trust you because of the service you provide for your village. Whenever things go wrong, you are never a suspect because people trust you. Nobody expects you to be doing wrong things. They expect you to be correcting wrong things. That is why when things go wrong, your name is always far away from the suspect list. It is on the name of those to investigate the matter. But mostly those who become corrupt are those who do good deeds for the sake of the fame. It is because their hearts were never pure to begin with. They did not save people because they needed to be saved or because they cared, it was only because they wanted to be famous. Such people are two-faced. In the dark shadows, they lurk taking advantage of women, who are unfortunate to be infatuated with them. They take advantage of the fact that people trust them. They abuse the power they have. Such corrupt seeds are not heroes. They are nothing but products of greed. The Sandaime Raikage made a brave sacrifice during the Third Shinobi World War. He stood against 10,000 enemy shinobi. He allowed his men to run away while blocked the path of the enemy. He knew that he would die fighting against 10,000 men. However, the safety of his people meant much to him than his own life. Thus, he let them go so that they could not be killed. He was the Raikage, defender of his people, and he died that way. He fought for 3 days straight against 10,000 shinobi, all with the purpose of seeing his people survive. And indeed they did survive, but at the cost of his own life. His men viewed him as a true leader, a hero for his noble sacrifice. In Naruto's case, the concept of being hailed as a hero is no value to him. Even if it were the many that considered him a hero, it would still mean nothing to him. What is of priority to him and would make him smile is seeing through his journey. He could never smile or feel pleased with himself if people hailed him as a hero when his journey had yet to reach its destination. Naruto did not care about fame, what he cared for was his priorities. Perhaps the reason he cared less for fame was that did not care for other people's affections. What were other people's affections good for him? Nothing. They did not make him smile. He was past the days when he strived for people's affections. Perhaps the only affections that had more or less value before his eyes were the affections of those he considered friends. Other than that, he did not care. The village hidden in mist, one of the 5 great shinobi nations, was in a celebratory mood. Looking at the mist people, you could never say that just 2 weeks ago they had fought the last battle of the civil war that had been crippling the once great nation. The civilians and shinobi alike had become one ever since the final battle, the victory over Yagura and his men. They were happy and rejoicing because their village was finally free from the shackles of Yagura and his evil, blood-filled reign. They were now free to live within their village in peace. Truly, everyone was in good spirit after the civil war had settled. Of course, they have not forgotten those who died during the years of the war. Those who died were still remembered for their sacrifices. They had played their part in freeing the village from the tyrant Yagura. Living in happiness was one way they could honor their sacrifices. The village might be in good spirits, but they were still rebuilding. It had been just 2 weeks since the war ended. The day that followed the day of victory, the rebels marched back to their village and started to gather usable materials for rebuilding. Young and old, everyone was taking part in the rebuilding process of the village. The civil war had left the village in the brink of collapsing. The financial situation was not favorable and Kiri had lost all of its allies because of the civil war. Rebuilding the village would be difficult because of the situation. Nevertheless, everyone was more than happy to do their share of duty in ensuring that the village was rebuilt. They had to rebuild their homes, and all the facilities that would be needed. Shinobis used the jutsus at overtime to ensure that the process of rebuilding going at a fast pace. Mei Terumi was installed as the Godime Mizukage. She was their leader during the civil. She was the true choice to become the Mizukage. Her men had no problems with the fact that she was a woman. Woman or not, they accepted her as she was because they knew she was a good leader and the strongest amongst them. No one was more suitable for the mantle of Mizukage than her. Despite everything else, some of those civilians and shinobi who supported Yagura's reign were not very well pleased with Mei's appointment. They could do nothing about it though. Even some of Yagura's loyalists who were still alive could not do anything. Some had tried but were quickly dealt with. Others, who were tired of the constant bloodshed, accepted the change. It was the best option. There was a time that one reached in life when you become tired of fighting meaningless battles. Yagura had fought and lost, that fact had to be accepted. A new Mizukage was in place, a new one who did not follow Yagura's ideals. Mei had been persuading the remaining of Yagura's men who were still alive. She did not want any more fighting internally in the village. All she wanted was to rebuild the village and ensure that everyone lived in peace. That was her goal. More fighting and killings would only weaken the village's military strength further. They had lost enough shinobi already, it was best that they not lose anyone any further. Not even one. Of course, none of this would have been happening if it were not for Naruto. Kiri had gone on to hail him as their savior, hero of Kiri. Few have gone as to hand him the title of God for the strength he displayed during the final battle. He had showed them strength that they had never seen before. Because of him, Kiri had been freed. He basically won them the war by himself. A feat that was astonishing to say the least. Nevertheless, calling him a god was taking the praises too far. Even Naruto himself knew he was nowhere near to be considered a god of shinobi. He still had many years to improve. To say that Naruto was thrilled by the affection the rebels were giving him would be outright lying. To say that Naruto was grinning like a madman because the people were practically kissing his feet would be like saying Tsunade allowed Jiraiya to give her a massage. If anything was to be said, it was that Naruto was annoyed. He had no interest in people giving him thanks for saving them. He could never even get some peace because someone would always find him and annoy him. He did not care for the attention and recognition they were giving him. All he wanted was to be left alone so he could plan his next move. True, he have saved them, that did not mean they had to thank him each time they saw him. Mei had questioned Naruto about his reasons for saving the rebels. She wanted to know if the only reason he had joined the rebels was because he wanted to test his strength. The only answer Mei got from Naruto was a nod. Testing his strength had been his main objective of joining the rebels. True, what Yagura was doing was wrong, but that did not concern Naruto. It was not his business, thus he cared less for what was going on. The only difference with the issue was that Yagura was a Jinchuriki. Mei had reminded Naruto that he had also said he wanted to end Yagura because he was making Jinchuriki and Uchiha look bad. Naruto did not deny that being another reason for killing Yagura. He had been once a Jinchuriki and his mother was a Jinchuriki. They were Jinchurikis of the Kyuubi, and yet none of them turned out to be crazed bloodthirsty monsters. His mother was kind and gentle despite having being a container of a biju of mass hatred. He was also alive and did not go around killing people simply because he felt like it. He placed his mother as a front of Jinchurikis. She was a symbol of how Jinchuriki should turn out to be. Anything less than that was unacceptable. Yagura was making Jinchuriki look bad. He was giving people a reason to call Jinchuriki monsters. Jinchuriki already endure many hardships because of the beasts they contain. They may hold monsters, demons, as people call tailed beasts, but that did not make them monsters. What Yagura was doing was making Jinchuriki look bad. He was insulting his mother's memory. That was unacceptable before his eyes. Gaara had been an exemption because he was just a lost child that needed guidance. There had also been a rumor spreading around that a Sharingan was manipulating Yagura. That being said, it made Uchihas look as bloodthirsty murderers because whatever action Yagura took was because an Uchiha was controlling him. Therefore, it was Uchiha's fault that Yagura was spilling blood. Naruto did not want such a rumor to be associated with the Uchiha. Itachi had massacred them to avoid something as bad. If he had not done what he did, the clan would be remembered as the once great clan that attempted a coup d'état. Naruto wanted the Uchiha to have an image of a great, prideful and powerful clan. Yagura might have been a victim of the Sharingan, but that did not change the fact that his name was dragging the name of Uchiha down. Killing Yagura in the middle of the war, had it not been for the fact that Naruto wanted to test his strength, he would have simply had White Zetsu drain the man of his chakra, then drag him to him so that he could see that he was taken care of. Not assassination. No, the draining of chakra would to so be could be taken before Naruto without much trouble. Yagura was guilty for his crimes against his mother's image and the Uchiha clan. He would never deny that he had joined the rebels because Yagura had to be dealt with. Naruto was sitting alone just outside of Kiri. It was somewhat quiet outside the village, that is why Naruto preferred it over being at the village. Since not every building in the village was destroyed, which meant that there were houses, hotels and restaurants that were still operating. Naruto could have chosen to stay at his hotel, but many knew where he lived. If he stayed there, he would have women knocking at his door during night or day. Their reasons would be to thank him in special way. While others just wanted to jump on him because he was cool. Fangirls never dwelled well with Naruto. Their behavior was annoying, not the least amusing. Lately a few people ever tried to cross his path, though given his attitude. He was not the one to be smiling around the village. People had become intimidated because he would simply stare back at them with his Sharingan. That put on the male population away from him. Unfortunately, that did not seem to work on the female generation. To them his attitude only made him cool. Naruto was pleased with his own strength and what he could do. With years, it would increase and he would surpass all the legends in the shinobi world. Perhaps the one he would not be able to surpass would be the Sage of Six Paths, since he had no plans to collecting all the biju and seal them within himself. However, with the Rinnegan and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he could attain a piece of the sage's power. That was enough for him. He doubted that anyone in this age or generation would even come close to reaching the strength level Madara had. The current shinobi were a nuisance in regards to strength when compared to Hashirama and Madara. Perhaps even the Sandaime Raikage, the man did fight the Gyuki alone to a draw and suffering only one injury. He had an ultimate defense that no one could bypass, even the Gyuki's Bijumuda could not. However, Naruto doubted that the Sandaime's shield would stand against the Kyuubi's Bijumuda. Even in its imperfect form, the Kyuubi was still the strongest of the nine-tailed beasts. The Gyuki might have been second to the Gyuki in terms of power, but it could never defeat the Kyuubi even without half of its power. Naruto looked from beside him to see Zetsu right beside him. I thought you might have been interested in keeping the Sanbi for yourself, Zetsu said, looking at Naruto. This was the first time they were speaking after the final battle. Zetsu had never appeared before Naruto. No, I have no interest in the Three Tails. But, with the death of its Jinchuriki, it will take no less than 5 years for it to reform. With that much time, Akatsuki's plans will be put on hold till it reforms, Zetsu concluded, seeing now the reason Naruto did not extract the Sanbi from Yagura before he died. Yes, they have to seal the bijus in order. Without the Three Tails, they won't be able to move on to the Four Tails. Zetsu nodded. What do you plan on doing with them? Are you going to hunt every member down? No, Naruto replied, shaking his head. You will continue watching their movements and report when they make a move for Shukaku and the two tails. You are going to allow them to take the Jinchurikis. No, I will intercept them before they do since you will be tracking their movements. If I can just stand in the way of them catching a single Biju, Obito will be forced to take me seriously since I have no doubt his arrogance has yet to see me as a threat, Naruto replied impassively. No doubt when he sees you as a threat he will come to you himself or send Nagato after you. He will come to me all right. Fight me. No, he wouldn't do that if Nagato is still alive. The likely choice will be that he will send Nagato after me. Again, Zetsu nodded and smiled. Well, things are going to be surely interesting from now on, he said. They will, but mostly it will also be annoying, Naruto admitted. Since he was going back to Konoha, he would have to deal with the council and other things that he would rather not deal with. I have something interesting you may want to know, Zetsu stated, making Naruto look at him. Jiraiya's spy network is really effective, he already knows that you are here and is on his way, Zetsu revealed. Jiraiya's spy network was indeed effective. He had more information in the Akatsuki than any other village and was able to find Naruto's location before anyone else could. Kiri had cut itself from the rest of the world, thus it was very difficult to get information from the village. Now it was a little easy since the civil war was over. Naruto was sure that people were now starting to whisper his name around the corners of the world. Is he coming alone? Naruto asked. He was not surprised that the Sannin had decided to pay him a visit. Jiraiya would never miss the chance to chat with him. No, he is coming with Sasuke and Kakashi, Zetsu replied. Sasuke. Has he completed his training? Zetsu nodded. I guess I will see how little Sasuke has grown, Naruto said, not sounding like he was interested in what he was saying. What have Danzo and the elders been planning for me? They are planning to put you and Sasuke under the Clan Restoration Act. And some other things, Zetsu replied. He had no doubt Naruto would outright refuse to be placed under the act. Naruto's face took an amused expression, no doubt so that we can breed more Sharingans for the village, he said. But you do have to look for someone if you are going to restore the clan, Zetsu commented. Even if Naruto would refuse to put placed under the CRA, he still had to find a woman or women to help him restore the Uchiha clan. With Sasuke also there, they would restore the clan faster than it would have been if it were only one person. I am aware of that, Zetsu, Naruto said. He was aware of the fact that he had to find himself a woman to help him restore the Uchiha clan. Soon he would take care of Nagato and Obito, by that he had to have already laid the foundations of restoring the Uchiha clan. It was bothersome for him. Have you begun looking for suitable candidates? Zetsu asked. He was truly interested in the subject. Naruto never talked about it, not ever. I was not looking for any candidate, Naruto replied with a shrug. Have you located Orochimaru? He asked, changing the subject. Zetsu sighed. Yes, he is in the Stone Country. It appears that you did some damage to his body. Good. We will head there after Jiraiya arrives, Naruto replied. Zetsu nodded. I will be going back to the hideout. It will take a few days for Jiraiya to arrive here. I will return within a week, maybe before he arrives. Zetsu stated and sunk to the ground. Naruto did not even respond when Zetsu spoke. Naruto stayed still after Zetsu had left. There was Sasuke and then he would have to deal with Orochimaru. This time Orochimaru would not make it out alive. He wanted to have the Kyuubi complete sooner rather than later. He had assured the Biju that he would get his other half back. He would ensure that he got it back for the Biju to be complete again. It would also make him feel better. He did like perfection. That night Naruto lay in his bed, eyes closed. He did not have much to do before he could go after Orochimaru. Relaxing for now until Jiraiya arrived would be best he could do. It would be amusing though, if Jiraiya were to try to force him back to Konoha. There was no doubt the Sannin would bring up the subject of going back to Konoha. Naruto was not interested in going to Konoha now. He wanted to set a few things straight before going back to the village. A knock on the door snapped him out of his thoughts. He knew exactly who was at the door. It's open, he said. The door opened before being closed by Yugao. Naruto looked at the older woman with a ghostly raised brow. He had noticed that after the battle with Yagura, she had grown even more uncomfortable with just being alone with him. Despite her obvious uncomfort, she still went straight to his bed and sat on it. Naruto spoke first. You are a very good censor, he said. It had not been long since he returned and she had already found him. She was always seems to find him wherever he goes. What makes you say that? Is it not true? Naruto replied with a question of his own. Yugao nodded. It was true, she was one of the best censors in the Anbu. She could not rival the Aburame and Inuzuka, but she was one of the best. You seem to rather like my company, Naruto stated. Yugao kept quiet, wondering where he was going with his words. Tell me, Yugao, are interested in me? He asked bluntly with an impassive look on his face. Yugao felt her heart beat a bit faster than normal. She could not believe that he would ask such a question so bluntly. She knew he was straightforward, but for him to ask her that kind of question was unimaginable. What troubled her was that she could not say yes or no. Over the past weeks, she had taken a liking of him. She would be lying if she said she saw him as the same as she always did. He had grown considerably well, and was also handsome. It was also obvious that Mei had also taken a liking towards him. A fact that did not please her. The fact that she did not like it when Mei flirted with Naruto had her question what she thought of Naruto. Right now she did not know what she felt. When are we leaving here? She asked, changing the topic. She couldn't answer his question. Not because she did not want to, it was because she did not know what it was that she felt about him was. Jiraiya will be arriving here in a few days along with Kakashi and Sasuke. You will go back to Konoha with them, Naruto replied. If he had asked Mei that question, she would have definitely answered him without missing a heartbeat. The woman was straightforward with what she wanted. Naruto did not see anything wrong with it. It was a good attitude to him. He was also not shy to ask what he wanted. Yugao looked at Naruto. She was not going to ask him how he knew that Jiraiya was coming back to the village along with her senpai and Sasuke. If anything, Naruto was resourceful and seemed to know about everything. You are staying here? She asked. No, Naruto replied. I have some other things that I have to attend to before returning to Konoha. Oddly enough, Yugao felt relieved that he was not going to spend more time here in Kiri. Mei was too blunt with what she wanted and it was a matter of time before she got her hands on Naruto. That was most likely not to occur since Naruto won't be staying any longer than he should at the village. There was also the fact that Naruto never seemed interested in her or in women for that matter. How long will you take before you return to Konoha? Naruto simply looked at her. Why do you ask? Why? That question ran around her head. She could not say that she just wanted to know. There was another reason behind that. Nothing. Never mind, she said quickly, avoiding answering Naruto's question. As things were becoming a lot more uncomfortable on her, Yugao stood up. I will be going. I had just come here to check on you, she stated and walked away without waiting for Naruto to answer. She knew that he was not go say anything after her. It was always like that with him. Even if she said good night to him, he would not bother to respond. Naruto sighed as Yugao left. Women were complicated. They placed their emotions at a higher level. He would rather not have to deal with them since they were very emotional. Naruto did like dealing with emotional wrecks. It was not that he did not have any emotions. He had them like everyone else. He just knew how to control them and never allowed them to cloud his judgment. He was very good at hiding them. Naruto's hotel room morning came rather quickly than anticipated. But no one could complain. Complaining would be just a waste of breath. Once night gave way for day, it was done, nothing could be changed. Regardless of how you may wish for day to return to its rest, once it was its shift, day will always take over. Better waking up and accept that the day had come. It was not like any hour of the day had suddenly passed without count. All the hours had been lived, the thing was that people never got enough of the time given to them. Often they just waste it, and when it is late, they start using it wisely. Once a person starts to do things like that, he or she will always complain about not having enough time. Everyone has the same time as everyone. The difference is how we use our time. Some use their time to things that will benefit them even tomorrow. Others focus on using their time on one-time experiences that will be lost as soon as the mind rests at the end of the day. Naruto never complained about not having enough time. There was always time, whether little or enough, time was time. One just had to find a useful and beneficial way to use it. Without using the time wisely, a person will always end up making rhetorical complaints. Naruto had already taken a bath and had breakfast. He hated hotels because his room only had a bedroom and a bathroom. There was no kitchen, the hotel provided food. Having spent much of his childhood by himself, Naruto was used to eating his own cooked meals. It did not feel right eating meals cooked by other people. He was also picky with his food, he did not just eat anything. In his younger days he had always almost exclusively ate ramen only. These days he ate food that was healthy to his body. He ate food that was not only delicious, but food that was welcomed with open arms by his body. Naruto was wearing his armor, but his gunbai was safely leaning against a wall. He liked wearing his armor, he felt comfortable wearing it. It was also useful here in Kiri as it shushed unwanted attention away from him. The armor added with his Sharingan and impassive face gave him a bit more fearsome look. Only a few would come to him in hopes of sharing a few good laughs with him. Disappointment awaited them though. He was about to open his door and leave the room when he heard a knock. Using his senses, he searched for who it was inside quickly upon finding out who it was. He opened the door and Mei entered inside the room. She went straight to his bed and threw herself there carelessly. She looked worn out like she had not slept the whole night. Naruto merely stood at the door and watched the woman. She mumbled something under her breath. Naruto did not catch it, but did not bother to ask her what she had said. Finally, Mei shifted on the bed and looked back at Naruto. Being Mizukage is so tiring, Mei all but whined. There is just so much paperwork to do and I have to balance the funds distributing equally so the process of building goes through smoothly. I did not even get some sleep last night. Naruto's expression never changed. However, he was amused by Mei's antics. She was whining like a child, but he did not show that on his face. A ghost eyebrow simply rose up. I would imagine it would be challenging. But I thought you knew that beforehand you accepted the mantle of Mizukage, Naruto stated. He was still standing at the door. I knew I would have too much work to do due to Yagura's actions, I just did not think it would be this too much work to do, Mei replied. I don't even have time to do anything else these days. I am always hooked up on my paperwork, council meetings. It is all too much for my mind, she said caressing her temples. You are a strong woman, I am sure you will do just fine, Naruto gave a rather rare comment. Mei smiled brightly, those are the first encouraging words you have ever said to me, Naruto. Naruto raised a brow. Does that surprise you? Yes, Mei replied with an honest nod. I just never thought you were capable of saying those words. I have never seen you encouraging anyone ever since you came here. Deciding not to comment on that, Naruto spoke, I was on my way out. You can rest here if you please, he said. That's rude. I came here to visit you and you are just going to leave me here because you were on your way out. Your visit is acknowledged, Naruto replied opening the door. Naruto, wait. Mei called rushing over to him. They walked out of the hotel room and walked within the streets of Kiri. The villagers were busy with their everyday activities. Others were just minding their own business. The village was lively if one could say. Upon seeing Naruto walk with Mei by his side, they smiled brightly and waved their hands at them. Of course, Mei was the one returning the hand waves, as Naruto just walked like he was not seeing the gratitude people were giving him. Does it hurt to smile or wave back at them? Mei said. Naruto never once smiled to her people when they were greeting him or waving their hands at him. The only time he even seemed to acknowledge their actions was the day of the final battle and the day after the battle. Since then he never smiled, or seemed happy to be hailed as a hero to the village. No, but it is not necessary since I have already done that, he replied with a nonchalant shrug. Not necessary. Their reasons for being kind to me are for that I saved them. I have already acknowledged their thoughts and it would be pointless and a waste of my energy for me to walk about the village waving my hands to everyone every day. Mei sighed and decided not to say anything further. They continued to walk further in silence. They just walked seemingly to an unknown destination. Walking around the village, Mei had to smile at her unite her people were, well most of them. She just hoped that they could maintain the unity even after the village recovers from the civil war. After they finish rebuilding, they would have to start taking missions. This meant that shinobi will no longer be running around the village as they would be busy doing missions. Now was the only time which the civilians and the shinobi would bond. Mei was glad that they were doing exactly that, bonding. It's a lovely sight, isn't it? Mei said with a bright smile looking around the village. Naruto just nodded. Silence was conceived again. Mei was the one to break the silence. When are you going to leave? In a few days. Mei's smile dropped for a second. She knew he was going to leave soon, but she did not expect him to be leaving so soon. Well, it had been a month since he came into the village. I was hoping that you would stay a bit more. You will be returning to Konoha. No, where are going to? Perhaps I can run away with you. Stone Country. Mei raised a brow looking at Naruto. What are you going to do there? I'm going to take care of some business, Naruto replied without giving info on what he was going to do at the Stone Country. Mei decided to nod, getting that Naruto was not going to tell her anything. The two walked in silence again. They walked towards the training grounds, west side of the now rebuilt Mizukage Tower. The training ground was vacant. Just what Naruto wanted. He was not going to use the ground for training. He wanted to sit down and relax away from the noisy village. Mei sat down beside him on a small rock under a tree. You like this place, why? It's quiet and peaceful, Naruto replied looking at Mei for a second. If I had not known that before the final battle I would have been shocked by those words. The way you fought was not like of someone who enjoyed quietness and peace. Are you saying that I should look for quietness and peace in the middle of a battlefield? Naruto asked. Like usual, the question seemed to be rhetorical as he never waited for an answer from Mei. The battlefield offers me an opportunity to dance a little and an environment like this gives me the chance to be in peace. Dance. Mei thought. So you enjoy the thrill of a battle, she said earning a nod from Naruto. Can I ask you something? Naruto just looked her. Mei took that as a yes. Have you ever thought of trying to find peace in the elemental nations? No, Naruto replied. It was true. He had never thought of trying to find and bring peace in the elemental nations. Perhaps the thought of peace might have crossed his mind once. Surely he had shrugged it off. Why? Peace is not the reason for my existence. Therefore, I choose not to bother about it. Not everyone is not born for a certain goal. When I was born no one gave me a goal to be Mizukage or to save my village from the blood purge, Mei stated. But because we have feelings and care for our home we do things that we never thought we would. Look at me, I was forced to become a leader of the rebels going against the leader of our village. It was not a reason for my existence, but I chose to do it for my survival, for the survival of people I care about. She almost sounded like a priest when she spoke. Your reasons for saving your village and becoming its leader are that you care and for your survival. That is understandable. I would have done the same. Mei was now surprised, really. Naruto did not bother to respond to her question. Then what about peace? What about it? Why won't you try to bring it to the shinobi world? He certainly had the power to change things. His power was astounding and yet with all that power he chooses to do nothing. Mei could not understand that. Tell me. What would be your reason to bring peace to the elemental nations? Naruto asked looking straight at Mei's eyes with an intensive stare. The stare unnerved her. Because I do not like what the elemental nation has become. I want a world where everyone is free. I want a world where things like what happened here in Kiri don't happen again. Another reason would be that I care about the world. Naruto continued staring at her. Mei stared back without flinching after answering his question. How noble of you, he said. It sounded sarcastic, but Mei could never really tell. She was not sure if Naruto even knew the meaning of sarcasm. So why do you not bother to think about peace? Because I do not think like you. I do not care what happens to the world. I'm not saying I do not see how corrupt it has become. It is just not of consequence to me. I do not fear evil, or the corrupt. I can always remove them at any time I choose if they become bothersome to my cause, Naruto replied. Mei looked at Naruto and sighed. You know so many people wish they had the power you have. Not for evil but for good intentions. Yet, you have the power but you choose to do nothing. Nothing more was said. Naruto knew that Madara wanted peace in his own unique way. That was the main objective of the Moon of the Eye plan. The problem with it was that Madara wanted to take people's free will doing it. He wanted to take away people's reality and put them in an illusion. When he was still little, he had believed that Madara just wanted to rule the world. Naruto could see the flaw in the plan, taking people's free will. Perhaps if Madara had instructed him to continue with the plan at his younger days he would have agreed to do it. But now, he did not know if he could. Taking people's free will was not something he found himself capable of doing. Naruto had also concluded that the reason Madara had even thought of the plan was because of his god complex. Before casting the infinite genjutsu, he would have to become the most power being, Jinchuriki of the 10 tails. With all that power, Madara had thought of casting the genjutsu as he would be superior to everyone. 2 days later there is always a journey, a path which one has to take simply because we exist. Our existence and the impact of it is valued by the kind of life we live and the choices we make. One cannot be a great person if he does not make the choices that are to be made by a great person. Careless mistakes can lead a man to failure, humiliating failure for that matter. We make our own paths and choices. But often in the shinobi world some people are not born with that luxury to make their own choices. Some people are born and restricted to follow certain principle. Without following the laws and principle they are exposed to shame and dishonor. Some people are born to fate, become what they are chosen to become, whether they like it or not. Often there are always strings making us do things or influencing our choices. Some are seen, some are not. For Naruto, you could not say it was fate that brought him to the position he currently stood. It was a choice that made him where he was. Naruto did not believe that there was such a thing as fate. He believed that if such a thing existed, it was man-made, one created her own fate. Naruto stood with his armor worn and gunbai strapped on his back. Jiraiya, Sasuke and Kakashi had arrived into the village. With their arrival, it meant that Naruto could now leave the village. They had been inside the village for a few hours. Naruto figured they were sightseeing and gathering intel. He did not wait for long to go to the 3 men though. The 3 men stared at Naruto in wonder. He was a fearsome warrior in his gear. The Sharingan and the impassive look on his face only intensified that. Of course, they had also heard of his adventures that were nothing short of a miracle. They could not believe that he had become so powerful and fearless. Well, he was always fearless, but the power the eyewitnesses were saying he displayed was astounding. That was unless the eyewitnesses were exaggerating. But given that this was Naruto they were dealing with, one could never know. There were also his adventures at the Otogakure where he decimated Orochimaru's bases. The blonde was capable of anything. For Sasuke, he felt a ting of jealousy for the other Uchiha. At the same time, he was a bit proud that there was another Uchiha that was powerful. He was part of the powerful clan. Someone has been busy, Kakashi stated, his eyes on his little orange book. He was the first to speak after the group had met. When they arrived they first looked around the village until Naruto appeared before them. Jiraiya was just staring at Naruto until he finally spoke. He does look a lot like him, doesn't he, Kakashi? Hi, Kakashi replied, his eyes narrowing at Naruto. Just imagine what would happen if he had black hair. The elders would probably freak out and call for his execution, Kakashi commented. Naruto looked at Sasuke. The Uchiha seemed different and he could tell he had improved his strength. Kakashi has trained you well, Sasuke, he stated, ignoring Kakashi and Jiraiya's conversation. Sasuke just nodded. Kakashi this time had trained him with all his might, unlike when he was still a genin. And you have become strong, Sasuke stated. Yes, I have, Naruto replied. His eyes morphed into its M's form. Tsukuyomi, he muttered. World of Tsukuyomi. Sasuke found himself in a familiar place, the same kind of place that gave him nightmares in his younger days. He looked around and saw Naruto looking at him with a calm expression of his face. It appeared that he was not going through another torture session. The thought made him sigh in relief. I see you remember this place, Naruto stated. It is not so different from what Itachi did to you. But I did not put you under this illusion to harm you. I figured that much, Sasuke stated, looking back at Naruto. You said it before that you and I are like family. You are correct about that. You and I are the only Uchihas that will give birth to a new generation of Uchihas. But for that to happen you and I must be willing to work with each other. Don't you agree? I agree. That was why I even bothered to go talk you after the Chunin exams, Sasuke stated. Naruto nodded, that is what I wanted to hear. I believe that you will be going back to Konoha when you leave here. What I want you to do when you go back is to go to Tsunade or the council and tell them to return every Uchiha property and money that was confiscated after the massacre. Do not take no for an answer, is that clear? Sasuke nodded with a smile. He was liking how Naruto was thinking. Also make sure they give you back everything. Some scrolls were taken from the library, get them back. When everything is done I should be returning. Then we can begin rebuilding the compound. If they refuse to give me what is ours. Sasuke, since when do you take no for an answer? Naruto said with a small smile. Perhaps the first time he ever smiled to Sasuke. Sasuke smiled too and let loose of a chuckle, perhaps never. But you do know that they can be difficult sometimes. If everything is not returned when I return to Konoha, then we will just have to make them see reason now, won't we? Sasuke nodded with a smile. With everything now said, Naruto cancelled his technique. End world of Tsukuyomi. The change in Naruto's eyes did not go unnoticed. However, no one was willing to ask anything about it. Before you leave, look for Yugao. She is somewhere in the village, Naruto stated looking at Kakashi. She is here? Kakashi questioned. Naruto did not respond, he turned his back on them to leave only to be stopped by Jiraiya. Where are you going? Naruto turned around and looked at Jiraiya. Where I wish to go, he replied. Naruto. Jiraiya was cut off by Kakashi. Aren't you going back to Konoha with us? Kakashi asked. He knew that if that was Naruto's first answer to Jiraiya's question, it was not going to change. He had spent more time with the blonde than Jiraiya. So between the two of them, he knew him best. No, Naruto responded. I have other business to attend to. What business? Jiraiya asked with narrowed eyes. You are interrogating me, Jiraiya, Naruto stated. I don't like that. Jiraiya snorted. Listen here, Gaki. Hyman the elders gave me an order to make you return to Konoha. The fact that I still wear the leaf headband should be enough to make understand that I'm still one of you. As for you orders, I don't care about them. You can always tell them that you failed. Jiraiya was about to yell something when Yugao appeared before the group. She smiled brightly upon seeing her senpai. She went on to hug him. Kakashi returned the hug with a smile. What are you doing here? Kakashi asked. Long story, senpai, Yugao replied. Jiraiya looked at Yugao for a moment. Azuki Yugao. You have been missing from Konoha for about a month now. He stated. Tsunade had given him a task to look for her and her squad, which had been out on a mission but never returned. What he was able to find were bodies of her comrades, nothing about her. Yes, that is true. I will explain about that later, she replied. I assume that you are trying to make him return to Konoha, she said, earning a nod. Don't bother, he won't budge. What? I am a Sannin, I will take him by force if I have to, Jiraiya stated confidently. With all due respect, Jiraiya-sama. The fact that you are a Sannin means nothing to him. He does not care if you are a Sannin or not. Believe me. Again, with all due respect, Jiraiya-sama, I don't think even you can force him to return to Konoha. Yugao said in her Anbu mode voice, trying to emphasize her point to the Sannin. Jiraiya mumbled something and looked away. How do you know that? A question came. I saw him fight during the Civil War, she said. Not bothering to go into details as to what occurred during the final battle. I have also spent about a month with him, so I know no one can make him do what he does not want. You have also spent much time with him during his genin days, you should know that. Yugao stated looking at Kakashi. Kakashi sighed and nodded. She is right, he said. Fine, Jiraiya said. His took a serious look as he stared directly at Naruto's eyes. What is this thing I heard about the Kyuubi? Naruto raised a brow. What about it? Don't play stupid with me. News did travel fast. But only a select few knew of the Kyuubi's appearance during the Civil War. Well, it did not matter though. Well, flashback a year after Naruto had left Konoha to begin with his training. Naruto walked within a familiar sewer. His water-filled footsteps echoed throughout the sewer. He stopped when he had reached a large cage within the sewer. Behind the large gate that stared at Naruto was the nine-tailed beast, Kyuubi. The said Biju had its head resting comfortably on its paws with its eyes closed. Naruto knew that the Kyuubi knew of his presence despite the Biju playing like it was sleeping. Hello Kyuubi, he said. Slowly the large eyes of the Kyuubi opened and stared at Naruto. What do you want? It was obvious from the tone of the voice that Naruto's presence was not wanted. Naruto had the Sharingan, a dojutsu that had been used twice to control the mighty Biju. As such, the Kyuubi hated anyone with the Sharingan, but not more than Madara. Naruto was also related to Madara. I want to offer you something, but in return I want something from you, Naruto stated, resting his hands on his chest. What? It did not sound like the Biju was interested in what Naruto wanted to offer it. If anything, the question was just asked for the sake of it. I told you last time that I would free you from this cage. It's degrading for a being such as yourself. Oh, he was not being sarcastic. I also don't like the fact that I'm sharing my body. Perhaps if it was the Jubi I would not complain, he said. If I give you your freedom, you will come to me when I call you. The Kyuubi did not even think about it for a second. It snorted, my freedom for being manipulated again. I would rather stay in here. You are letting your hatred toward men cloud your thoughts, Naruto said, pissing off the Kyuubi. His words sounded like an insult to Biju. I never said anything about manipulating you. You are just making those assumptions on your own. It's always like that with humans. They say that and do this. Your words mean nothing to me. The Kyuubi spat. You are being difficult and complex like a woman, Naruto stated. Watch your mouth, brat, the Kyuubi said in a low, dangerous tone. You say you can't trust my words. I get that. But the fact that I'm here speaking to you should be enough to convince you that I can be trusted. I have my Sharingan and it is very easy for me to control you with it. You live inside my body, you should know that manipulating is below me. The Kyuubi growled in response, it knew that was the truth. Contrary to what Madara believes. I believe that you are not some mindless beast that needs to be controlled by those with blessed eyes, Naruto said, keeping his voice calm. But right now, I am starting to question that. Perhaps all that hatred you bear has stolen your ability to think logic. Naruto just managed to insult the Kyuubi again. Though to him it was not an insult. He was just saying what he thought. If he was going to go anywhere with the Kyuubi, being brutally honest was one way to do it. The Kyuubi rose up and glared at Naruto murderously, its tail swung menacingly behind it. I will not tolerate you to speak with me like that, brat. If it was not for this cage I would have ripped your body apart in a matter of seconds. You will not tolerate me to be honest with you. He did not wait for the Kyuubi to respond though. The only reason I even said I would need you to be available when I call was because if I had just said that I wanted to free you, you would have just tried to rid of me in your presence. He paused for a moment. Well, it does no matter anyway. You will still have your freedom. I will return here in 2 days, he said and walked away from the Kyuubi. 2 days later, Naruto stood in the ancient land of the dragons with Zetsu beside him. Madara had been the one to discover the land since the man probably knew everything about the shinobi world and things that occurred before shinobi villages were formed. Naruto understood that Madara had more knowledge about the foundations of the world than he let on. Madara only told Naruto what was necessary for him to know. But after spending so much time at the hideout, Naruto did some researches of his own. Madara did not see this land, but he knew it existed. Perhaps it had been his busy schedule that took most of his time, therefore not giving him the time to visit the land. Zetsu did most of the research though. He also had to find a way to enter the place. White Zetsu's clones were the perfect specimen to use when testing ways to enter into the land. Using Madara's notes, he had used reverse summoning jutsu to get to the place. The place was like the fire forest, but it also had active volcanoes within it. Naruto walked calmly towards the Kyuubi's cage. Today would be the day the Kyuubi gets its freedom regardless of its opinion on the matter. Naruto knew that the Biju wanted out. Perhaps it was just being too prideful to admit that to him. Perhaps it was the fact that he was an Uchiha, and also Madara's grandchild. Madara had been the first man to take control over the Jinchuriki with his Sharingan. The Kyuubi hated the man for it. In fact, he hated the Uchiha for it. Given the chance, the Kyuubi would not hesitate to kill an Uchiha because of its hatred. Naruto arrived next to the Biju. It was just staring at him unblinking as if trying to figure his intentions. I came back again, Naruto begun. I am no seal master, but I know how to weaken the seal. Minato's seal is quite complex, but with force it can be broken, he said. The Kyuubi said nothing, but Naruto knew his message was heard. I will weaken the seal. Zetsu will be trying to extract you from the outside, while you force yourself out of the seal, Naruto stated. I believe that is clear enough, he said and lifted himself up into the air. Upon the 2 large gates there was a paper with a kanji for seal. He lifted up his shirt and channeled chakra to his stomach. The seal appeared. Naruto's fingers glowed with chakra and he slammed them on the seal before spinning his hand. The seal twisted a bit and Naruto winced in pain. He looked at the Kyuubi to see the Biju still watching him calmly. He waited for a minute and saw the Kyuubi's chakra leaking out of the cage. The black ink of the seal on his stomach became like liquid dripping of his gut. Naruto smiled. The seal was weakening. Outside, Zetsu saw Naruto fall down to his knees. He moved quickly to let him fall easily on the ground. He lifted Naruto's shirt and saw the change on Naruto's seal. He smiled and placed his hand on the seal. He focused on the Kyuubi until he grabbed the chakra that was leaking off the seal. He pulled it out with his right hand and stepped away from Naruto. His right hand had palm open with the Kyuubi's chakra extracted from the seal kissing the palm. His left hand formed a single hand seal as he began to pull out the Kyuubi. Had Naruto not took some time to study the seal Minato had used, he would have never found a way to weaken it. But now he had found it. Still he could feel the pain his body was experiencing because of the Kyuubi's chakra being pulled out by Zetsu. It would only get worse when he tears the paper with a kanji for seal on it. Sighing, Naruto placed his hand on the seal and began to rip it off. Just then a hand grabbed him, stopping the process. He was pushed away from the seal. Yondaime, the Kyuubi growled with clear anger dripping from its voice. It stopped trying to break from the seal to glare at the man who had sealed it. Naruto just stared the Yondaime with an impassive look on his face. He was surprised to see the man in front of him. He had not expected him to show up. Minato looked at Naruto oddly for a minute before speaking, "Naruto." He sounded unsure whether it was Naruto or not. "Hello Minato," Naruto replied, keeping his calm expression. "Yondaime, come here so can rip your body to shreds," the Kyuubi growled again. Minato looked back at the Kyuubi for a moment before looking at Naruto again. He had winced when Naruto called him by his name. Looking at his son's face, he could not tell what his son was thinking seeing him. He sighed. He did not have much time to dwell on anything. "Naruto, why are you trying to break the seal?" he asked. "It does not concern you," Naruto replied. "I cannot let you free the Kyuubi Naruto. It's dangerous." Naruto cut off the Yondaime. As I said, it does not concern you. You are just a mere manifestation of chakra sealed within the seal when the Kyuubi was sealed in me, Naruto stated. You are dead. Your role has already been fulfilled. Naruto brought out his right hand, placed it at the Yondaime's chest. Minato did not know what his son was trying to do. He could not really tell what his son was thinking since his words had no anger in them. "Disappear Minato," Naruto said, releasing a wave of chakra through his hand that was placed on Minato's chest, making the chakra spirit of the Yondaime disappear into thin air. Naruto went back to the Kyuubi's gate and ripped off the seal. He looked back at the Kyuubi. "Leave some chakra behind to compensate for your absence. If you don't do that, it might prove nasty for me," Naruto stated, leaving the cage. He stopped and narrowed his eyes at the Kyuubi. "When you are free, my body will be severely weakened. I will be unable to do anything, and if you try anything funny, I will make you regret it," he threatened dangerously and walked away. The Kyuubi snorted at the threat and went back to focusing on trying to break free. The seal formula stretched out around Naruto's body, lifting him into the air. He was letting out a pained scream as Zetsu continued to pull out the Kyuubi from the seal. As Zetsu continued to pull the Kyuubi, Naruto's skin became pale. The process lasted for more than an hour as Zetsu did not have much chakra to forcibly pull out the Kyuubi at once. When the Kyuubi was extracted, it appeared in all its glory. Its chakra was still visible as it had yet to fully adjust and absorb all the chakra that had been left in the atmosphere due to the extraction. It narrowed its eyes at a pale-looking Naruto. He looked like he was going to die at any moment. Thoughts begun to sneak into its head as it thought of finishing the blonde while he was down. But then again, Naruto had freed it from the seal and had not even manipulated it with his Sharingan. It could roam around breathing fresh air. Damn, it missed seeing the world. Zetsu walked towards Naruto and picked him up hurriedly before disappearing from the Kyuubi's view. White Zetsu separated from Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu took over Naruto's body because he knew if he did not do that, Naruto's life would be at risk. His Uzumaki genes and the secrets to his body gave him a chance to live, but even with the chance of survival, anything could happen. As soon as Black Zetsu possessed Naruto's body, it felt the Kyuubi's chakra rushing around Naruto's chakra pathways. The Kyuubi must have left some of its chakra behind, he thought. A few days later Zetsu had left Naruto's body after seeing that his heartbeat had become stable just a day before. And now Naruto was already up. He had not fully recovered but he was alright. The chakra the Kyuubi had left inside his body had mixed with his own, giving him a higher chance to survive. As soon as he was able to mold his chakra again, Naruto reverse summoned himself to Drago Land, the place where the Kyuubi was extracted. Naruto found the Kyuubi resting like it always did while it was still sealed in him. How does it feel to be free? Naruto asked. Good, the Kyuubi replied shortly. Good, Naruto said. So do you trust me? No, the Kyuubi replied without missing a heartbeat. Naruto did not even look dejected by the Kyuubi's response. His face just remained, as it was, impassive. He had more or less expected the Kyuubi to give him that reply. But I can still work with you. Let me it clear. I will not become your pet and I will not do anything I do not like. That is fine with me, Naruto replied. Flashback and Jiraiya did not need to know all that. That was between him and the Kyuubi. That does not concern you, Naruto said and disappeared without telling them anything. You know when I said to stop trying to force him back to Konoha, I had left the part that someone should go with him, Yugao stated after Naruto had disappeared. I don't think he would have agreed even with that, Sasuke said. Yay. Kakashi said. You did say that he would not do anything he did not want, Jiraiya pointed out. True. If I had offered to go with him, I doubt he would have refused. He needs someone to be his side. Kakashi raised a brow. Is Yugao-chan worried about Naruto? He teased. Yugao blushed slightly. If you saw him at the Civil War, you would be worried. He is reckless and I fear he might be in trouble because of that. He does not even think when he charges against his opponents. But I think that was because he was a little excited about fighting, she finished with a thought. Yugao-san, you did hint that Naruto was stronger than Jiraiya-sama. So I doubt anything will happen to him. Sasuke stated. Sasuke is right. Come on guys, let's go back home, Jiraiya said. He was disappointed that Naruto did not even stay to chat with them for more than an hour. He only spoke for a few minutes and left. A few minutes later Naruto was walking calmly on his way out of the mist village. Orochimaru was next on his agenda. He wanted to deal with the snake before going back to Konoha. Zetsu would meet him while he is still on his way. He stopped suddenly when he felt a familiar presence behind him. I'm so hurt that you were leaving without even saying goodbye, a voice of Mei spoke from behind him. I had to hear from my men that you were leaving, she said walking closer to Naruto. Naruto managed to smile as he turned around to face the woman. I did not think my departure would hurt you, he said sounding a bit amused. Mei walked closer to Naruto and stood an inch away from him. You were leaving without me giving you a goodbye kiss. It seems that way, Naruto stated. When will you return? I have no plans in returning here, Naruto replied looking straight at the woman's eyes. Mei leaned closer to Naruto and stared at his eyes. Their lips were just a breath away from making contact. It seemed like eternity as Mei stared into Naruto's eyes. Mei closed her eyes and moved her lips towards Naruto's. They made contact. Mei was afraid that Naruto would not kiss her back. She felt relieved when Naruto got hold of her warm and soft lips for a moment before pushing her back. Naruto smiled at Mei. Mei had never seen a smile like that from him before. It brought warmth to her heart. Goodbye Godime Mizukage, he said and disappeared into the mist.